Hello everybody, welcome back to another stream. Hope you're doing well. Alicia, Without Horns, love of it. Red Knight, nice to see all of you again. So, yesterday on stream, we watched a couple videos by Ratatosker, starting with Stormveil's Curse, Godwin's Murder, and the Bloodstar. Then we transitioned into was Marika involved in the Night of the Black Knives. And then we didn't have as much time to go into Miss Chalice's video as I was hoping, so we switched over to Kite Tales. Let's analyze the entire story trailer, Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, something like that. So today I have Miss Chalice's video queued up, the one that says we need to talk about the Godskins, Elden Ring Lore, and then after that I figured we could check out Smotown's story trailer lore breakdown, Shadow of the Erdtree. That's it. Okay. Hi, Puppy. Of course, right after I start stream, he tries to put a toy in my lap. But the good news is it's a bone, so he might entertain himself. All right. Anyway, Galaxy Dragon, nice to see you again. So, the past couple days, we'd always been receiving a bit of new content with the DLC. I haven't seen anything official, which doesn't mean that there wasn't anything, but at the very least, my community hasn't been talking about it if there was something new. But with it also being the weekend in Japan, it may not be such a surprise that we didn't get anything today, but we were spoiled the past few days at the very least. All right. So with all that being said and out of the way, let's go ahead and dive on into our first video of the night with We Need to Talk About the Godskins by Miss Chalice. And this is a very new video. It was released about a week ago. So very excited to see more content about Godskins.
Let me set the scene for you. You're exploring Elden Ring, crossing a giant bridge to explore what lies at the top of this magnificent tower. But suddenly, an amorphous blob of a figure materializes from nothing and launches a burning mass of black flames at you. And by the way, no boss health bar has appeared at the bottom of the screen, so you're not even sure what this thing is, let alone what it's called. It jabs at you with its sword in almost a fencing-like maneuver, followed by sweeping around with a lizard-like tail, all while clad in an unsettling, rippling material that appears to have faces stitched in when you look closer. This thing is a godskin, as its attire suggests. Got a thing for skin. Today, I will do my best.
The costume, I kind of already forgot about it. Yeah, it's a little bit annoying that they're called like God Skin instead of like God Skinners or something like that, because when I was going through on my very first playthrough of Elden Ring, I'm like, okay, God's kin, as in like the kin of the gods. And then I was like, herder, wouldn't it be funny if it's actually God's skin? And then lo and behold, it was actual God's skin. So joke's on me. Yes, Alicia, I did see the link for that video in the channel, but yeah, just it's a little bit difficult trying to always balance how much content I can watch per night. So I'll probably get to that one pretty soon here, to be honest, though. And then Little Church Lore, nice to see you again. Clown Scum, Black Man, Herb Sorcerer, Anticipated Galamoth. Welcome on into the stream. You haven't watched anything from this channel yet? So cool, so creative. Yeah, actually, I like Miss Chalice. She's always had pretty reasoned takes for the lore, so I really don't have anything bad to say about her. So yeah, if you're unfamiliar with her channel, she's got a lot of Elden Ring content that's worth looking into. All right, at least I'm not the only one in thinking that it was God's space kin anticipated. Feels good. Galamoth is stuck on Mohg, even though you've beaten him many times. You think FromSoft secretly patched your game to buff him? I really like the Mohg fight because he's challenging, but he feels very fair, with the exception of a couple of like the area blood attacks. Those feel a little bit cheap, but to be fair, those ones also do like a ton of damage, so I can kind of deal with it. Although, to be fair, I guess a lot of people really hate the Mohg fight, more specifically because of Nihil, but that one didn't bother me too much, I guess. Maybe it's because I already had like the crystal tier, or I've had builds where you can burst him down before he can kill you with it. You could also just chug if you really need to and just get good. I don't know if it's percent-based damage or if it's flat. I think somebody in chat a couple weeks ago was telling me, but I forgot. So It would definitely suck if it's flat for RL1 runs, perhaps. Neil's the coolest. Yeah, no, you definitely got to roll into a lot of his attacks. Like, the thing that I appreciate about Moog as opposed to Morgott is that while his attacks are delayed, it's mostly because of the actual range of his weapon, which is deceptively long. But, like, when you actually see how his attacks land, you're like, damn, that's pretty fair. It's just, like, it takes a while to swing that trident around. His arm stretches, you swear? Kind of, a little bit, but not exactly. It's just like the way he wields it, but yeah. Herb Sorcerer has a theory about Mesmer baby being a bastard born from Marika and Radagon, while she was still with Godfrey, making him even more blasphemous. It's possible. We definitely don't know when Mesmer was born, which is a bit of a headache for now, until we get that info in the DLC. Can't wait until they add in an extra twin and then another butterfly to throw everyone off even further. You saw 1 HP MP stamina build run, and he was tanking the heal, so it's definitely a percentage based. Interesting. Okay. And that's not too bad. Okay. Thank you.
To tell you everything you need to know about the Godskins, whose skin that is, and who the Gloom-eyed Queen is that you might have heard so many people talking about. But speaking of things you've heard people talking about, I want to first thank the amazing sponsor of this video, Displate. Displate provides unique posters designed to capture your passions on metal, a refreshing alternative to outdated paper posters or canvases, and with over 2 million artworks available in their catalogue, with officially licensed designs like Elden Ring, Warhammer, The Witcher, and many, many more. Displate is also a platform for artists, as thousands of creators worldwide can share their designs and illustrations to display in your home on a metal canvas. Displates are tool-free and safe for your walls. Each displate has everything you need to set up, no need for drilling, holes, or any of that frustration. Just use the sticker leaf and magnet provided, and you will have mounted your new art in seconds. You can also swap around your displates whenever you want as they detach and reattach. Displate offers fast delivery, arriving in 4 to 5 business days, all printed in the European Union. Also, a new
I wish it was a bit easier to like make your own designs for things like Displate and stuff like that. One thing that I would, if I could like make this work with like licensing and whatnot, that I would like to do is maybe get a bunch of cool artistic screenshots of the game of like Elden Ring and like put it on merchandise. But I mean, it seems like the legal avenues to do such a thing are not widely available for perhaps good reason, but it makes just seeing all that other knockoff stuff kind of more annoying. Actually, no, that's not even like it. The thing that annoys me the most is if you go to the Bandai Namco store, there's really not much apparel at all. Like nothing that I would really want for myself. But anyway, Bella, nice to see you again.
New product line has just launched called Displate Texture. Premium prints have 3D contours, tactile textures, and a selective matte and gloss effect to make them stand out as unique wall art. It's now available in hundreds of best-selling displates, and the range will aim to expand in the following months. This month, Displate is celebrating their birthday, and because of that, they want to offer their biggest discount of the year so far. You can get up to a massive 42% off by using my discount code Chalice, or by using the link in the description. Discount will be applied automatically. Thank you so much again to Displate for sponsoring this video, and now, back into the lore we go. You encounter the Godskins 7 times in-game, either solo as an apostle or noble, or together as a...
And that Godskin apostle down in the bottom of the Caelid Divine Tower messed me up. I admittedly went to Northern Caelid like way too early. Like I was going there before I went to Liurnia. So I did not have a good time. That dude was destroying my soul. Yeah, looking back, it might be because I probably didn't have like very many flasks to begin with. I was like level 40. I only had like the base spirit ashes. And the good news is I did eventually kill him. And then I pretty much rocked that Godslayer Greatsword for the rest of my run. Just because it sounded way too cool not to use. Yeah, and those monks are pretty rough, especially at that level. It was actually kind of fun fighting them because they were so much of a higher level than I was. He drops as many runes as Radahn. That doesn't surprise me. It legitimately feels like Northern Caelid is a level 100 area with all the dragons and whatnot.
Duo fight.
Nice level.
No specific or separate questline is associated with them, but the duo is a compulsory fight in Farum Azula. You do need to defeat them in order to progress the game's story. Let's start with talking about the apostles. These Godskins are distinguished by their tall, slim stature and ruffled layers of clothing. They do not wield a sword, but more of a utility weapon. Unique twin blade wielded by Godskin apostles.
I really like the graphics that she's got going on for this. Actually, this is kind of weird, like the background. She probably needs like a little bit of a higher res of the painting thing, because this almost makes this look blurry when I can tell it's just like MS Paint. But nonetheless, I like the kind of embellishments and whatnot. Looks very crisp, minus the texture stuff.
Characterized
And hey, Natural Phenomena, nice to have you in stream again.
by its disturbing design. One end features a sickle for slicing attacks, while the other boasts a winding spike for boring into flesh. This item has an appropriate name for its purpose, the Godskin Peeler, capable of creating...
So boring into flesh just kind of reminded me of a little bit of completely irrelevant story time for you guys. But back when I was in elementary school, I was a really good speller, and I placed, I don't remember the exact details, but I went to like my school district's like regional spelling bee, and then the word that I got was boar, and I knew that boar could be like the pig or to be like boring. So I asked the dude who gave me the word to use it in a sentence, and then he said, "The child bored through the wall." And I'm like, what the hell? I know that wild boars charge, so maybe it's spelled B-O-A-R, and I was wrong. It was B-O-R-E. And believe you me, I never forgot the meaning of the word boar after that.
Leverage in a victim's skin and reversing the end to finally slice and fillet. And as you may have realised, the Godskins wear the skin they harvest. The apostles wear a more frayed quality of skin than their counterparts, but atop their headpiece lies a fittingly head, or rather skin, from someone's face. Pretty grim. In contrast, the Godskin nobles brandish a piercing sword, the Godskin Stitcher. The nobles possess skill with the sword unmatched by any lowborn. Despite its size, successive attacks from this weapon are swifter than the eye can follow. Now understanding the double use of the peeler gives new perspective on the Stitcher. One can now view it as a giant sewing needle used to piece together harvested skin into a disturbing patchwork.
You know, recently with the DLC trailer, there's been a lot more imagery relating to like threads that might tie into this whole like needling thing. So we definitely had Radagon with his needle, and I know like you guys have kind of mentioned this stuff either in chat or on the Discord over the like past couple days. I've just been kind of like sitting on it, just not really having too strong of an opinion one way or another. But I totally forgot about the Godskins kind of having this needling thing as well, which I mean it kind of makes sense because they're tailoring skin into new armor. So maybe I might be overthinking this, or maybe there's more of like an actual thematic connection between like gods and thread and tailoring or something like that. Drilling holes is so boring. Thank you without horns. That's really cute. My pain for you guys is entertainment desires. Corn says, you think they used to hunt the demigods, but now you wonder if there used to be multiple gods they hunted. For what it's worth, in the 1.0 description of the game, the quick description for the Godskin set did say that it was tanned demigod skin. So that might have been an idea earlier in development that could have been walked back, or it might still be true to some degree. It's hard to tell, because also if Marika is a god and her children are, you know, related to a god, one could argue that the children are of the gods, and then like the Godskins could have been skinning them. So that idea could still work out perhaps, but Yeah, I don't know. And also, welcome back to stream if I didn't say that. And Pigsy said, Miquella also has the needles. His final needle has 5 eyes in it for thread. Is it 5 eyes for thread? I just thought they kind of represented the kind of buds that are depicted on the Hailing Tree design. I would need to double check that. Hey, Drew, nice to see you again. Little Church says, textile seems to play a significant role between curtains, baldachins. That's another kind of curtain. So clothing, veils, etc. Maybe. And then obviously, like, there's Bach and his demi-human mother with the seamstress stuff. So I mentioned this like the other day, or probably a couple days at this point, that for the 1.0 version of the Roundtable Hold, the grace in the large grace kind of looked more thread-like than it does now, but I don't really know how relevant that is. But after seeing the trailer and the way that the thing which Marika pulls out looks string-like or hair-like and whatnot, maybe it is supposed to be more relevant after all. And yeah, speaking of like threads, we could also talk about the idea of like the threads of fate and whatnot. And that could tie into like the ideas of the Norns and Yggdrasil, the world tree. But that also like depends on the mythology. Because from what I've heard, like not all of the Norn myths dealt with threads specifically. That seemed to be like more of the Greek thing with the, what are they called? Not the Furies? The Weird Sisters? No. I can't think of what the Greek ones are called off the top of my head. Hey, Necropolis, welcome back in. Why didn't you get this sooner? I mean, sometimes it just needs to be pointed out. Yeah. The Fates. Why did I struggle thinking of the Fates? Yeah, thank you, Morlor. Definitely. I was thinking like the threads of fate, but yeah, okay. Anyway. I'm gonna go back to the video while I blush.
The description of
They
this
are
weapon
Furies?
also
Okay.
gives us information on the hierarchy of the Godskins. The word lowborn hints at a societal structure within them. We can conclude that the nobles hold a higher societal ranking than that of the apostles, who are considered lesser. The physical sheer size of the nobles, round and shapely, also supports this. To put it plainly, being fat can be representative of affluence, at least historically. For example, in London's industrial period, there was a positive correlation between weight and social status. These guys are eating good because they are highborn. Now, whether this privileged status equates to general royalty in the lands between, or just significance within the Godskin microcosm, is something we will explore in a little bit. Let's return to the fat suit. Robe made by sewing together patches of...
So this doesn't entirely contradict the English description of the Godskin Stitcher. And I think like Miss Chalice's observation here is probably still correct. But this is, you know, just a slight flavor difference that somebody might be interested in, which is why I kind of mention it now. So the nobles possess skill with the sword unmatched by any lowborn. This is a little bit stronger in the English here. The Japanese is just more like the sword skills of the nobles surpass the masses, essentially. So it's not so cut and dry, I suppose. Okay, yeah. That'll be about that. There's a hierarchy enforced by who gets to eat first. That's dirty. Did them dirty, man. Her vids are always so charming. Hey, Jay Dixon, welcome back to stream. Little Church Lore said, you forget what translation it is, but if you remember correctly, the noble was considered more noble because they were closer in physiology to the Crucible. I don't think there was that causal link of them being more noble because they were closer to the Crucible. It just seemed like because they were the oldest, they were closer to the Crucible. I will look for that description. I'm pretty sure it's the Godskin Noble set. God. Yeah. The English is pretty good. It says, nobles are the most ancient apostles who are said to have assimilated inhuman physiology. Not unlike the Crucible, the Erdtree in its primordial form. Obviously, I always kind of take issue with saying that it's like the primordial form. But anyway, the Japanese is really close to this. It said they harbor aspects of the Crucible within their bodies, within their flesh. They are the oldest of the apostles. The nobles are. And then they even resemble the Crucible, the Erdtree's origin. So, I think saying like the Erdtree's origin is just kind of a little bit awkward, but that's just kind of how it is. Like the Erdtree's beginning is the Crucible. Erdtree beginning, Erdtree origin. Which is kind of like contradicted in like the Crucible Knight set, sort of. Which is why it was always such a headache to first try to parse through all those descriptions in both languages. Korn says, you saw somebody try to argue the pattern on their outfits matches the back of the chair in the still shot release of the new Karian person's chair. I don't think so. I know that chair design is shown in the, what's it called? The moon gazing pool in the Karian Manor. So if you want to have like an actual like direct comparison, you can do so there. I unfortunately don't have resources of both off the top, like on hand. So otherwise I would compare them now.
Smooth skin. Subcutaneous fat makes it plump and soft. The word subcutaneous means underneath, and in this context it refers to the layer of fat under your skin. If you've ever seen surgery or a cross-section of the skin, subcutaneous fat is the layer of fat situated below the outer skin but above the muscle. This gives you an idea of how deep the nobles had to slice in order to construct a garment of this skin type. Now, I called it a fat suit because this equipable armour retains the distinctive round body type of a Godskin noble when you wear it. This isn't the first time an enemy's armour is adapted.
Here's kind of a weird, silly idea, but might have an odd kernel of truth to it. Are the Godskin nobles fat because their suits are fat? Like, unironically, like, if they get Godskin powers from being swaddled in the cloth skin of the gods, and the apostles are thin but don't necessarily have like gigantic suits, then could the big nobles have also been made big because of these more plump and sumptuous robes? I don't necessarily think it's entirely likely, but I don't think I can just actually dismiss it, believe it or not. Maybe a bit of both, maybe. Drew says, do we know for sure their bodies are actually fat under all that? I don't know if they're fat, but they're certainly big boned. Like their arms are much like thicker than the apostles. Korn thinks that they're jacked under there. Blackman says, do they have to be fat because they eat that much? It just looks big on the player character for effect. I don't think so, because like I'm sure when we get some more Godskin footage, it'll be kind of easier to compare them. Maui from Moana build. Alright. Little Church says, it reminds them of the fire prelates. The large size represents the weight of their responsibility, the thunderousness of their gravity. Hey Janos, welcome on in. Have I seen the painting, The Seventh Plague of Egypt, and how similar it is with this DLC? If so, I'm not familiar enough with the title to say whether I've seen it or not. But I will look into it. Thank you.
Kind of strangely when you wear it. For example, some pieces not only take the helmet, but also the character's hair as well, or just their straight-up face. But returning to my question, are the nobles truly big underneath, or do the clothes contribute to their overall size? Does his outfit make me look fat? Honestly, I'm unsure, as I don't know if it's possible to access their character models separate from their clothing. If you've got any experience with character model and layering in this way, please feel free to add your input in the comments below. But I'm inclined to say it's a bit of both. Notably, during combat with the nobles, they can alter their body shape, puffing out their stomach, inflating like a balloon and increasing their surface area to cannonball around. Granted, human skin can stretch somewhat, but this is absurd, almost fantastical. Perhaps once stitched together, the Godskins imbue their garments with magical properties, allowing them to morph at their command. Interestingly, the apostles also demonstrate a similar ability. In combat, they can elongate their midsection, increasing their height this time instead of width. With their tall, stretched body, they whip around, almost like how giraffes fight with their necks. And on their model, their anatomy is clearer, suggesting that it is their body that alters its shape and form rather than the skin clothing. But how are they able to do this? We need to return to the noble's robe to find the answer. Nobles are the most ancient apostles who are said to have assimilated inhuman physiology, not unlike the Crucible, the Erdtree in its primordial form. So not only does this explain why the nobles are of highborn right, but it also gives us a clue as to why they have tails. Assimilated suggests acquiring non-human features and body parts and functioning in their physiology. Assimilation in biology is the process of breaking food down into nutrients, or is this
So I know we were talking about snakes and whatnot on the other stream, but now that I kind of take another look at this tail, it kind of almost does remind me of one of the snail's tails rather than just a snake directly. Although to be fair, snails in this game also look like snakes, so yeah, take that with a grain of salt. So I did look up the 7th Plague of Egypt painting, and yeah, I could definitely see a lot of the kind of Hellenistic influences in this painting that you can also find in Elden Ring. It looks kind of like the Ul and Erd dynasty ruins and whatnot, so definitely cool. I might need to look into some more Hellenistic Egyptian style architecture and or paintings, I suppose. Thanks. All right, and now actually, Little Church Lore, it's kind of funny you mentioned that, because I was watching a video earlier today that got recommended to me, because I'm certain Google must listen to what I talk about on stream, and since I was talking about snails the other day, I got recommended... Oh, did I not post the video? Oh, no, I did. Okay. Why knights fought snails in medieval art. There wasn't a super good takeaway about it. Some people thought it was meant to represent noble houses that picked up their houses with them and fled, like a snail's apt to do, from the arrival of King Charlemagne or Charles the Great. And then that's kind of a symbol was kind of co-opted to represent other things further along in history, and we don't actually know exactly what the snails represented, because when I first saw that video I was like, oh man, this might actually be somewhat relevant to the random ass snails that we get in Elden Ring, because why the hell are knights fighting snails? It'd be one thing if they're just snails, but knights are fighting them, so it could have just been a way to humiliate some noble houses for being cowards, I suppose. Hey Pantheon, nice to see you again. The snails even accurately wiggle their tail in excitement like real snakes. You love it? Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel like Miyazaki or his art directors definitely pay a lot of attention to snakes and serpents and reptiles, because there's definitely a lot of them throughout their games. Do I think there's a connection between the Great Serpent and the Godskins? You know what? I don't think so. And if for no other reason that when you use the Great Serpent's sword, it absorbs lost HP from enemies. And if the Godskins did that, I think I would be more comfortable with that kind of ancillary connection. But for now, I'll reserve judgment and lean towards no. But good question.
Definition puts it, convert to substances for incorporation into the body. Could the Godskins have consumed lizard-like creatures, absorbing their traits and incorporating them into their bodies? After all, you do find a Godskin noble in Volcano Manor, where the man-serpents roam around. While plausible, it's more likely that these features were developed through evolution rather than consumption, mainly because of the comparison to the Crucible. If you don't know, the Crucible is this ancient power that existed long ago and embodied primordial energy. But what is essential to understand in this context is that all life was once blended together. Picture a time where the distinctions between species were much less pronounced. Creatures possessed traits like...
I liked the little indicator for requires 27 faith. I don't know why, but that's very thoughtful.
...was once blended together. Picture a time where the distinctions between species were much less pronounced. Creatures possessed traits like tails, wings, horns, and even the ability to breathe fire. In fact, the concept of species probably didn't even exist back then. And that is why the nobles are likened to the creatures of the Crucible, primarily because of the tail, but additionally, Noble's presence, which is that big belly puffing out move, is reminiscent of the incantation Breath, one of the aspects of the Crucible. The expanding throat pouch looks like the Noble's inflated body. So we've established that the Nobles are an ancient form of apostle, occurring way before the standard Godskin apostle. However, with no disrespect to them, they also have supernatural abilities. But how did the Godskins come to be in the first place? Who created them? Well, we do know who their leader was. Sacred Sword of the Dusk-eyed Queen, who controlled the Godskins.
Oh no, a Dusk-eyed Queen reference that's been out of date since 1.06, technically. So, that's not a big deal. It's just kind of funny to me, like how it still crops up from time to time here.
Apostles before her defeat at the hands of Maliketh. This character is called the Dusk-eyed Queen, also more commonly referred to as the Gloom-eyed Queen in other descriptions. The word gloam means dusk, as in the time period in the evening, so the Queen's eyes supposedly resemble the twilight sky, a blend of purple and deep blue. There are multiple points of interest in this description. Firstly, she is described as controlling the Godskin apostles, which is curious wording. Were they naturally influenced to join her cause, or mentally dominated to do her bidding? And secondly, there was a confrontation between the Gloom-eyed Queen and Maliketh, the loyal beast protector, half-brother and shadow of Marika. There was not one demigod who did not fear him. Despite Maliketh's fearsome reputation, the Queen engaged in combat with him, and as expected, she lost. But let's take a few steps back. Why did this altercation happen in the first place? To do so, we need to explore the role of the black fire magic called Black Flame that the Godskins use. One of the incantations, Black Flame Ritual, tells us that the Gloom-eyed Queen led the apostles. It is said she was an Empyrean chosen by the Fingers. This is
Speaking of saying like the Gloom-eyed Queen led the apostles, I should double check the Japanese for Black Flame Ritual here, but since she had mentioned the English of controlling the Godskin apostles, I looked into it, and the character here, Hiki, kind of just means to lead. So I have a feeling it'll be the exact same as in Black Flame Ritual. So I'm just gonna like look this up real quick. Yeah, so she led the apostles. So it uses the same kanji like I would have expected. So stuff like that can just be due to translating things at different times or just inconsistencies in general. I don't really think there's that much of a difference between control and led. Although I guess with the English saying control, it could potentially lead to more sinister readings, especially with things like the bewitching branches existing in the world of Elden Ring. So yeah, maybe that wasn't the most ideal of words to use for that. And then Blackman asks, is the Godslayer's sword sharp or blunt? Keep in mind, most of the damage comes from Black Flame. I would probably suggest blunt, except if you get stabbed at the front end, if you do the crouching R1. And then most of the damage would probably come from the Black Flame itself, yeah. Hey, Emily Aiden, welcome to the stream. Do I think Marika and Radagon could have had a connection with Placidusax? I think it's definitely possible. I'm kind of cooling off a bit more to that idea with like the trailer of the DLC, but if Maliketh is the beast clergyman of Farum Azula and the beastmen were meant to kind of honor the dragons, and Marika is canonically older than Maliketh, it does make me wonder about Maliketh's connection to Farum Azula and then what that implies about Marika specifically. And because of such connections, it leads me to believe that there might have been a deeper connection between Marika and Farum Azula as well. I don't necessarily know about the Radagon thing specifically, and I'm sure many people's opinion about that will vary based on whether or not they believe Marika and Radagon to have always been one individual, or like split, or been two individuals who then like combine later, and all that manner of thing. Anticipated thinks it would be both sharp and blunt. Depends where you get hit by it. Corn says, if you think about it, the Crucible is a dragon. I don't necessarily know about that, because at the very least, Siluria's spear claims that the Crucible is shaped like a tree. Yeah, as Galamoth says. You're welcome. Okay. Genos asks a really good question in that, was there any reason why Miquella and Melina did not have shadows? We don't know. They could have had shadows. They probably should have if they were legitimately selected by the two fingers. But if they were born as Empyreans, maybe they weren't actually chosen by the two fingers and thus may not have had shadows granted to them. I've wondered whether or not Melina kind of serves as Miquella's shadow and whether or not he controls her through dreams. But yeah, we have yet to know for sure. Hey, MGHL9898, welcome to the stream. Have I seen Jack as a mimics Godwin Sunrealm theory? I have not. Alright, gonna hop back into this one.
This is an incredible revelation. Empyreans are demigods with immense potential to transcend into gods, shaping new world orders. And if these rumours are true, then the Gloom-eyed Queen is placed among a select few. Rani, Miquella, Melina, and of course Marika. Which must mean she was born a demigod with power recognised by the two fingers. Who on earth was this queen? She may have been related to characters we know of in this game, as to be a demigod, you must have had one parent who is fully a god, and at this moment in time, the only person we know of that status is Marika, and by extension.
So, I think this is a common, what I would say, misreading of the remembrance of the rock goddess, where some people think that being the Empyrean comes from the connection to the single god. Or no, she said the demigod. Yeah, so anyway, the point is, if you look back at, is it the Remembrance of Godric, or is it Godric's Great Rune? Yeah, okay. Godric's Great Rune kind of throws a wrench into things by saying the first demigods were the Elden Lord Godfrey and his offspring, the Golden Lineage. Now, not to unleash this cursed thought into the chat, which, I mean, I'm going to do anyway because it's kind of fun to do that sometimes. If Godfrey is a demigod and demigods are said to be the direct offspring of Marika, what does that mean? Or is this just more like a legal construct of somebody who is like close to the vessel of the Elden Ring? That might be the case. So, for what it's worth, Radon and Rykard's Great Runes say that they didn't become demigods, or that's not true. It said that they became demigod stepchildren after Radagon's union with Marika. So were they not demigods beforehand, or is this just like talking about them being stepchildren in relation to this, and the demigod is just a bit of a red herring? I don't know, but it annoys me nonetheless. Yeah, and demigod may be just a political title. Yeah, I've definitely heard that theory before. Galaxy Dragon.
In time, the only person we know of that status is Marika, and by extension, her other form, Radagon. And we know that there are multiple demigods in this universe beyond the main characters of the base game who are Marika's children, but we don't know their names. So it is possible that the Gloom-eyed Queen was one of those children. But what?
And so for anybody who's just listening along right now, Miss Chalice put a text on the screen of like one of those interviews by Miyazaki. Or no, this isn't the interview. This is like one of the pre-release materials where it talks about the Night of the Black Knives and the Shattering. So the text says, one grim night in the depths of winter, a flock of unknown assassins stole across the lands between. In a coetaneous attack, this foul covenant snuffed out the lives of many of the God Queen's kin throughout the Empire, too numerous and too scattered for her godly protection to save. And this is what Ratatosker brought up on his video that we watched yesterday as well.
What happened to cause her to die to her alleged mother's Empyrean shadow, Maliketh? Well, that might have to do with what a god's...
Her alleged mother. So she is trying to make the claim that the Gloom-eyed Queen would be Marika's child, I believe. Let me just back up to see if I got that all correctly, because I did kind of interrupt her a little bit with the Empyrean and demigod pedantry there. Blackman says, if Marika controls almost all bursts through the Erdtree, that's a very tricky question. I don't know if we can comfortably say whether or not Marika does control birth through the Erdtree. Although perhaps like you might feel a certain kind of way about the amber egg leading into that theory there.
Which must mean she was born a demigod with power recognized by the two fingers. Who on earth was this queen? She may have been related to characters we know of in this game, as to be a demigod, you must have had one parent who is fully a god, and at this moment in time, the only person we know of that status is Marika, and by extension, her other form, Radagon. And we know that there are multiple demigods in this universe beyond the main characters of the base game who are Marika's children, but we don't know their names, so it is possible that the Gloom-eyed Queen was one of those children. But what happened to cause her to die to her alleged mother's Empyrean shadow?
So, okay, going back to this point specifically, I feel like this can be soundly refuted because this attack talks about the Night of the Black Knives specifically, which would have meant that Destined Death had to have already been out of the Elden Ring, so that way Ranni could use Destined Death's fragments to kill Godwyn and herself. So the Gloom-eyed Queen should have, by all rights, died definitively before the Night of the Black Knives. But that's kind of not the part that I got tripped up on, so I'm going to back it up a little bit.
Beyond the main characters of the base game, who are Marika's children, but we don't know their names, so it is possible that the Gloom-eyed Queen was one of those children. But what happened to cause her to die to her alleged mother's Empyrean shadow?
Okay, I guess what I just said there might have been like misunderstanding her or just like taking a little bit out of context there. So Miss Chalice could have just been saying she could have just been one of those unnamed demigod children things, and not necessarily one of the ones that was killed during the Night of the Black Knives. So that was definitely my fault there, or like jumping a little bit ahead.
Maliketh. Well, that might have to do with what a Godskin is. Consider again the Godskin noble's robe, known for their 7-face aprons. Look closer at these faces. Each one possesses golden eyes. Eye colour is quite important in this game, and these eyes bear a striking resemblance to characters connected to gods or demigods. This excellent video by Zuli the Witch details the relevance of golden eyes and eyes in general. I highly recommend this video. All the eyes for every character are displayed really clearly, and they bring up some great theories about their meaning. As a side note, I wanted to do a mini section here on one of the strangest yet jovial locations in Elden Ring, which is Dominula, the Windmill Village, infamous for its sinister dancing festival. And for the most part, these celebrants are too caught up in the party to pay attention to you. But what is it that they are celebrating? And why is there a Godskin apostle here? The village's name, Dominula, can explain the nature of the festival and its participants. Derived from the Latin dominulus, meaning little mistress, the name suggests that this is a women-led congregation specifically focusing on younger women, which is supported by the celebrants' attire. All the women wear festive garbs, but there is a different version of the set reserved exclusively for the younger women, the blue festive garb. Use of this garb, dyed in a stunning blue, is only permitted for the young maids who play the central role in the festival. This festival may serve as a rite of passage, a coming-of-age ceremony for these young women. The word maid can be used to describe female youth, their unmarried status, or even virginity, hinting that taking part in this festival marks a transition to womanhood. Comparisons between these dancing ladies in the Windmill Village and the movie Midsommar has often been drawn due to the visual similarities, the bright flowers, the frenzied dancing, and communal hysteria. While these are physical parallels, there may be deeper themes that connect the two. For those unfamiliar, Midsommar is a very impactful movie that explores many themes like loss, heartbreak, perception of reality, power dynamics, and acceptance, just to name a few. The protagonist, Dani, has a transformative experience during the May Queen dance. This scene's relevance to Elden Ring occurs when Dani and a group of women must dance, twirl, and spin around a maypole. Dani becomes increasingly dizzy until one of the women says something to her in Swedish that she does not understand. After a moment of slurring words back and forth in confusion, Dani realizes that she does in fact understand her companion, and the two celebrate. The most poignant line is said by her dancing sister: "We don't need words to talk, it's dancing." The ironic thing about this scene is that neither of them speaks Swedish, English, or any conventional language at this moment, but they are actually making up words. They're speaking nonsense, but somehow have a mutual understanding through this nauseating union of dance. This is relevant in Elden Ring's depiction, where communication exists through dancing and raucous laughter, reminiscent of the euphoric camaraderie experienced in Midsommar. Despite the appearance of small structures, which seem to be maypoles, the absence of ribbons and feasts at the Windmill Village, it does suggest that this location was inspired by older, more primal roots, pagan rituals, witchcraft, or even historical phenomena like the dancing plague of 1518. But what does all of this have to do with the Godskins, I hear you ask? Well, a nearby ghost in the village gives us insight into this as he recounts his last moments.
I hear a festive melody. Don't skin me, my hide is filthy, I swear.
The dancing women assisted in the Godskins' skinning ritual. This is supported by the weapons they carry, ceremonial tools of different shapes and sizes, but all have something in common. They are all made of bones. And what must you remove before you can get to the bone? Skin. I think this Godskin apostle, either through negotiation or opportunism, struck a deal with the dancing women, recognizing the potential for harvesting human skin from their sacrificial rituals. The dancing women would have their festival and their bones, and the Godskins would secure another source of skin. While the precise targeting of male victims remains unclear, the exclusivity of male casualties suggests something deliberate in the selection process. Whether motivated by religion, the occult, or something else, there does seem to be a collaboration between the dancing women and the Godskins here.
And this is probably like one of the few times where I'd say like the layout of these corpses almost seems more George R.R. Martin inspired, but I don't really know. I mean, it could very well just be a designer like making some cool design in their mind. Anyway, that's not too important. Going back to some of the questions in the chat, Janos was asking, if gods are a race, is there a possibility of the DLC touching on Marika's origins/parents? Yes, so it does seem very explicit from some of the interviews with Miyazaki that we will be following Miquella while he is following the steps of Marika to try to uncover the history of what may have made her become a god and or the birth of the Erdtree. So that might include more information about her origins and or her parents. But if Marika is also non-native to the Lands Between and the Shadowlands is where she first alighted, first descended, first arrived, whatever you're going to call it, then we might not get too much about her actual parents. Hey Emerald Jack, nice to see you again. Galamoth wishes the Gloom-eyed Queen didn't exist honestly, or if she has to, that she wasn't so damn obscure. Just go back and, play the Dark Souls series where you have such well-known entities as Velka.
Does seem to be a collaboration between the dancing women and the Godskins here. It's my personal belief that these are the faces and skins of gods and demigods. After all, why are they called Godskins if not for their reputation of wearing the hides of divine beings, the skin of gods? And this is what the Gloom-eyed Queen seemed to have been planning. This curious item tells us that she was raising the Godskins from birth with this agenda. The Gloom-eyed Queen cradles newborn apostles swaddled in this cloth. Soon they will grow to become the death of the gods. Swaddling cloth is fabric wrapped around newborn babies to keep them tight and safe. This one is much more macabre. The face on this cloth seems much more warped and bloated. Its proportions actually remind me of the botchling from The Witcher, which, funnily enough, is an unwanted fetus that was not.
This little dude does kind of look like a Mogwin Albinoric, or you could probably say the opposite case, that the Mogwin Albinorics kind of look like this guy. And part of the reason why I just randomly bring up the Albinoric is because the Albinoric mask says it's a far cry from Godskin. And I've wondered if that meant that the Godskins could be recreated some way that's kind of similar to the creation of the Albinorics, but I don't know. It could just be hinting that Rykard could have just been torturing them for whatever reason, and like it could just be taunting the Albinorics in the description itself, perhaps, but yeah. MGH is torn on the idea of the Gloom-eyed Queen being Melina or the god that Marika usurped in the Shadow of the Erdtree trailer. Why not all three? Hey, Happy Hep, welcome to the stream again. And Astenex, nice to see you again. Chadwick said, it's like somebody bleached all the page numbers out of our history textbook and then indiscriminately threw out the pages and chapters. Kind of, yeah. Pigsy says, it could also mean that Godskin is a very old creation and the modern iterations have lost quality but are the same sort of thing. Yeah, I've definitely wondered that as well, which is very curious because Albinorics are almost guaranteed to be related to like silver and whatnot. And with the Crucible's ties to red gold and everything like that, one would almost think that the two would be incompatible if they are. But then again, the Godskins aren't necessarily said to be of the Crucible. They're just always described as being similar to it, which might be a meaningful distinction that I don't know enough about.
Given proper burial. Anyway, the idea of Godskin babies being born and wrapped in the skin of other babies is really disturbing, especially if this was a demigod baby they skinned. The last line suggests that the Gloom-eyed Queen intended for her followers to play a role in the god's demise. If she was indeed an Empyrean and a demigod child herself, her decision to live this life may have been driven by her desire to overthrow her own family. The implications of dispatching and wearing her victims would have likely incurred the wrath of Marika, which explains why there was a confrontation between the Gloom-eyed Queen and Maliketh, Marika's loyal protector. Interestingly, if you pursue Rani's questline, e.g. her war counsellor repeatedly talks about the dark path of the Empyrean, which is really curious wording. He goes on to detail Empyreans as instruments of the two fingers, which is the main motive behind Rani's plot. Rani was defiant and rebelled against her predetermined role as an Empyrean and successor to Marika. This is why she stole a fragment of the Rune of Death, imbued it in the blades of assassins, and took down Godwyn and by extension herself, thus relinquishing her from the control of the Two Fingers, the Golden Order, everything. And this is what E.G. refers to as the dark path of an Empyrean. He doesn't say Rani's going down a dark path. He says it like her actions weren't unprecedented, but rather a broader pattern of Empyreans challenging established norms. In other words, Rani was not the first one to pull something like this. It happened before with the Gloom-eyed Queen. She was also an Empyrean. She also harnessed destined death, and she definitely killed other demigods and wore it as a badge of honor. I'll explain my reasons here. You see, Black Flame, that spell that the Godskins harness, used to be much more potent than its current state. The Black Flame could once slay gods, but when Maliketh sealed destined death, the true power of the Black Flame was lost. This explains how the Godskins had the power to take down gods, take their skin, then wear it as a trophy.
Alright, so I might as well strike while the iron's hot, and this isn't necessarily to criticize Miss Chalice by any means. It's just, I think I might have finally been able to begin to articulate some of those ideas that I've had about the Elden Ring and the Rune of Death a little bit more clearly here in relation to the idea of Marika and the Gloom-eyed Queen and all that stuff. So maybe I should have saved my goofy drawing from last night, but I didn't, so we're going to do it live again. So, alright, so first I'm going to make a depiction of the Elden Ring with the Rune of Death again. Oh wait, before I do that, let's go ahead and copy this. And as I make this, I might just kind of stop talking for a moment so I could focus on the drawing and then actually what I want to say. And speaking of which, I was thinking about that stream that I did with Moxie, and I didn't feel nearly as inarticulate as I do on my general streams as when I was talking to her. And I was wondering what the reason for that may have been. And I don't know if you guys may have felt that way either, but I think the reason could be because when somebody else is talking, it gives me more of a break to kind of figure out what I want to say before I say it. Whereas when I'm just streaming, I'm also reading what you guys are saying out loud in chat quite a lot of times. So then it makes it a little bit more difficult for me to think my own thoughts to respond to that. So I just have to do it a lot faster, and my articulation of thought suffers as a result. I don't know. That's just kind of a random thought to try to buy some time while I put in way too much effort for this MS painting. Damn it. Right. So the red arrow looking like thing, why did I keep clicking? The red arrow looking like thing is going to represent the Rune of Death. And then why am I screwing that up? I guess I'll just need to double click. And then obviously the Olympic looking 3 rings will just be the kind of version of the Elden Ring that we know. Okay, finally got a decent looking thing here. So, well, let's just do Gek and maybe I'll like leave this the same size for you guys. The issue here is if the Rune of Death is in the Elden Ring, who is the god of this reign? If it's the Gloom-eyed Queen, that's one thing, but if the Gloom-eyed Queen is an Empyrean and not a god, then that should mean somebody else would control this ring. And so the only god we officially know of is Marika, so it's either going to be Marika or unknown. Let me move this stuff over here real quick, and then I will resize. I don't know. Let's do this. Let's give us a little bit more space over here. So, by the time the Rune of Death gets removed from the Elden Ring, then Marika should be the god of that time, which is fine. But my question ultimately comes down to what is going on here. So, if the Gloom-eyed Queen's a god, that's fine. You could potentially headcanon it, it's whatever. But if Marika is the god, then Marika is the god in a time in which destined death exists in the ring, but then you also need to ask yourself, when was the Erdtree born in relation to it? And then why would defeating the Gloom-eyed Queen coincide with the creation of the Elden Ring if Marika controlled the Elden Ring when it still had destined death in it? I think that's kind of like a big problem. And there could have been like an unknown god. It could be like the god of Placidusax and whatnot. So just kind of like go with that. So that's kind of like one recurring issue that I've had with trying to understand this timeline here. And if neither the Gloom-eyed Queen and Marika are the god here, then why would Marika defeating the Gloom-eyed Queen remove the Rune of Death from the Elden Ring? And then how would that transition the power between this unknown god to Marika when she seemingly kills somebody else? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And that's kind of like the biggest issue that I've had with this kind of interpretation of the timeline, with the Rune of Death not kind of being in the Elden Ring with Marika. Hopefully that makes sense. The fact that there would be this third component that seems independent of her. Practice makes perfect, thank you. And hey, Floorboards, I didn't say hello to you. Yeah, you tuned in at a cool time with that image, didn't you? Absolutely understandable, thank you. Hey, Teen Sith, yep, you get to tune into that live diagram. Thanks for complimenting me on the VOD of the other one. Hey, Ryushu, nice to see you again. Floorboard says, Marika is clearly the most powerful character in the Soul series that we've encountered. After all, she seemingly controls the omniscient annals of history. Very well. At first, I thought you were making like a legitimate claim. I don't know if she'd be more powerful than Gwyn, to be honest. Blackman said, the timeline gives him headaches sometimes. For me, that's all the times. Hey, Kyle and Reality Check. Nice to see both of you. Used to be two gods, maybe? I don't know about that, because that would mean that there are two vessels of the ring, unless you mean like two gods at different times. That might be a possibility, but it's still very annoying. Kyle thinks that the Gloom-eyed Queen was the god. She's queen like Marika was queen. She's Empyrean like Marika was Empyrean. A god fled Farum Azula, which most likely wasn't Marika. So yeah, the Gloom-eyed Queen could have been the god, but I know a lot of people feel like that'd be a big piece of information to leave out. And that doesn't necessarily discredit her being a god, which is why I try to be very clear with the framing here. And Pigsy thinks the Gloom-eyed Queen was the god. And Natural Phenomenon thinks the flood god of Placidus X was Radigan. I'll be honest, I hate it. Hey, True Connoisseur, welcome on in. Given that there are multiple gods, you kind of wonder if there's a state where there was an Empyrean family where the members each were a caretaker of an isolated rune in a sort of pantheon. Like you mean like the Divine Towers, essentially? That they could have been like the guardians of the Divine Towers, the Empyreans? I don't know. Like, I feel like there's probably something else going on with the Great Runes. And it does kind of bother me that more Great Runes or Mending Runes can be created. Is a Mending Rune actually a Great Rune? Maybe they're substantially different and somehow that's not made explicit. And I have wondered whether or not all of the runes in the Elden Ring were created from killing previous gods. So if that's the case and the Gloom-eyed Queen was the queen of the Godslayers and whatnot, could she have like essentially created the Elden Ring, which could potentially go against the whole narrative given to us in the Elden Stars description? But I don't know, like the idea of Rot being an outer god, yet also kind of having representation within the Elden Ring is a little bit weird, but yeah. And then Skyleezy's thrown some heat at Natural Phenomenon by saying, you have yet to become a god between Marika and Radagon there. So Luminous Azure, welcome in. You believe in the theory that says Marika and the Gloom-eyed Queen were twins. I don't think I've heard the twin theory specifically in relation to the Marika and the Gloom-eyed Queen, but it wouldn't be the most surprising thing. Kyle says, the ring wasn't shattered before. We need to create a new Great Rune to mend it. Before, it'd probably just be adding or removing from a fixed ring. I don't really think that's too different because we see Radagon's rune put into the Elden Ring. So whether it's a mending rune or a Great Rune might be a little bit of a different thing. But yeah, maybe you're right that the function of the mending rune is to just fix the ring. It's all slightly annoying. Pantheon asks, do I think the Gloom-eyed Queen is the inverse Elden Lord? I think you would need to substantiate what you believe an inverse Elden Lord is before I could support or really deny such a theory. Alright. Let's go back to the video.
We honestly don't know how the Black Flame was created in the first place, but I have a couple of theories as to how. The first definitely has the Gloom-eyed Queen as the reason why, using this description to support this. The apostles were all embraced by the Gloom-eyed Queen, and the Black Flame was their armor within. You get the image of this queen holding her followers like they were her children. She swaddled them, raised them, and gave them this motherly love that burned inside as a shield, the Black Flame's protection. Now here, I really do get a bit extreme with the theory, but tell me why we don't see any female Godskins. So, how are we making all these babies with innate Black Flame powers? Queen, you got anything to say for yourself? What I'm trying to say is that the absence of female Godskin nobles and apostles raises questions about their origin and reproduction. Did the Gloom-eyed Queen have this innate ability for Black Flame that her offspring inherited? Kind of like a curse, akin to how Melina was born with the curse of Scarlet Rot. The Gloom-eyed Queen may have been born with Black Flame within her, and she eventually discovered that she had the power to kill other godlike beings with it. In the art for Black Flame ritual, the flames in the middle, I might be seeing things, but the more I look, the more I see a figure in the centre. Someone with long hair and a puffed out dress, both arms outward and stretched, like they are holding something above their head. That something is small, wrapped in trailing cloth, like a newborn swaddled babe being held up triumphantly by their proud mother.
You guys know that I half joke about Laura Rorschach at times, but I feel like this isn't even like the half joke. This is like the full Rorschach right here. I couldn't even begin to think of a better example. And I'm not like trying to dunk on Miss Chalice. It's just kind of ironic that it's like the closest thing to an ink blot that I could possibly think of in Elden Ring. So, Galamoth asks, do I think it's possible for anyone to create a great rune? I think there's a bit of nuance to that. I think that if they had a strong enough will, there may be the possibility, at the very least, if they're tarnished, but I don't know if like literally any denizen in the lands between could. And Asnex thinks that the Godskin duo being in Farum Azula could imply that it's their home. I've definitely wondered such a thing as well. And then Yushun thinks that the Godskins are looking for Placidus Axe's god, or maybe even Placidus Axe himself. They might use the skin of the lords and Empyreans, which could explain the one on the bridge in Ronnie's tower. I think I've heard something like that before, that the noble out there could have been just trying to get Ronnie's skin, or what was left of it. But, yeah. Are Empyreans ripe things for Godskins? Maybe. Drew Wing says, maybe you have to turn all the grace in your body into the rune, and that's why they die. I've wondered that. There might also be some other stuff that goes along with it, but whether or not you just want to say grace or gold or willpower, that does, I think, seem to be the case for how Fia works as a deathbed companion. But why Dung Eater? Well, actually, Goldmask is the weird one because he doesn't seem to take anything else into him other than knowledge. So he's kind of like the real G for kind of producing his mending rune almost entirely by himself. It really just like took one sentence from the Tarnished for him to put things together. Whereas at least with Fia and Dung Eater, you're putting something else into them with the Halibrands / Godwin's will, or the Seedbed Curse for Dung Eater. So Pantheon talks about Mesmer seeming to be the inverse of Miquella. So through the mass genocide of the Crucible, she was born being able to wield dust and death. So there's a couple things that I want to talk about with that statement in particular, because I don't necessarily know if you mean that literally, that Mesmer is supposed to be the inverse of Miquella, or if kind of the inverse of that is true, where like Miquella ends up becoming the inverse of Mesmer. But for the so-called, how did you just phrase that? Let me look at that again. Through the mass genocide of the Crucible, being able to wield destined death, that would imply that destined death kind of existed after the Crucible, which is perfectly fine, but that might not be your actual feelings about destined death or other people's in the chats. So as far as destined death coexisting with Miquella, I would kind of strongly disagree with that because of the Golden Order already needing destined death to be removed for it to exist. And we definitely know Golden Order, or at the very least Golden Order fundamentalism, was a bona fide thing before the birth of Miquella because of like Radagon and everything, and Miquella trading incantations with Rads. So that doesn't necessarily discredit what you're saying, but I think there might be some unresolved implications of the way you frame that question that you might need to address if what I said does kind of appeal to you in certain instances there. Natural Phenomenon asks a great question in that, are the runes we level up with also the fragments of the shattered Elden Ring? I believe that's the implication because of some of the item descriptions, but yeah, I'm pretty confident, but I don't remember if there's an explicit bit of text to confirm or deny that. Hey, Sohelanthropist, welcome back in. You failed your academic comeback. Sorry to hear that, bro. Watching some LP to ease the mind. Well, welcome in, and sorry for the news. Hopefully you can recover and make a true comeback and get your groove back. Yeah, I kind of agree with Ryushun's take in the chat about the Great Runes. Okay, I'm going to go back to the video.
Reaching, I know, but it did make me think about the Gloom-eyed Queen's relationship with her apostles. Or did the Black Flame already exist in the apostles before they declared allegiance to being Godskins? The description of their armour tells us that the apostles, once said to serve destined death, are wielders of the god-slaying Black Flame, but after their defeat by Maliketh, the Black Blade, the source of their power was sealed away. This tells us a lot. Firstly, that the apostles were once in service of Maliketh. We can conclude this because destined death is another way of saying the rune of death, aka the ability to die, truly die, forever, and Maliketh was in charge of protecting and controlling destined death. This explains why the demigods feared Maliketh, because one step out of line and their immortality would be no more. So this explains the quote, the apostles served destined death. They were apostles of Maliketh, and because they had this connection, it's possible that the Black Flame was some kind of manifestation of destined death, hence why it had the power to take down gods.
So, I've wondered whether or not the Godskins should be related to Maliketh myself. I don't know if I would agree with that conclusion that they served him specifically, because of that other description which says, I believe it's his Black Blade. It might not be. Nope, not that one. Damn it. Let me try to find it. So yeah, I feel like that would potentially go against the Godskin Apostle set, although Miss Chalice might be trying to make the argument that after Maliketh defeated the Godskin Apostles, they kind of joined them, or joined Maliketh, maybe like the way Godfrey could have defeated the Crucible Knights, and they could have potentially joined him, depending on one's headcanon with that. And what I just said there, by the way, is not supported by the text. I've just heard that as a theory. And it seems to have kind of worked, because at the very least, that seems to be potentially what the Banished Knights did. They may have been defeated by Godfrey's armies or Godric's armies and just kind of like defected rather than suffer true defeat. So anyway, to give a quote verbatim, the apostles once said to serve destined death are wielders of the god-slaying Black Flame, but after their defeat by Maliketh the Black Blade, the source of their power was sealed away. Why is this always like going so far to the right tonight? Said to have served destined death, but yeah, it kind of sounds like the apostles were defeated by Maliketh, which kind of goes with the English there. Yeah, and then it was sealed. Hold on, let me parse this a bit more. So it does sound like Destined Death was sealed after the Godskin Apostles were defeated, potentially into a sword, but there might also just be like the two sealing events between when the Black Blade was sealed into Maliketh's flesh. Okay, that's definitely why I thought, okay, that explains why I thought there could have been legitimately two sealing events. You think she misunderstood that pretty hard? Little Church Lore says, the Great Glovewort talks about fallen hero stories becoming legend. Do you think runes tie into this? Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I don't know about the runes specifically, but for what it's worth, like runes, you can get runes from remembrances, so there is definitely an overlap between runes and memories. I just don't know how much of the Venn diagram is filled in, but I definitely kind of agree with that full idea, with the caveat that there could just be something else to it that we don't fully know. But yes. where do I store all the item descriptions? So this is just a spreadsheet that I made after looking at Evie's spreadsheets, and I do have those listed in the resources of my Discord server. Let me pull that up for you. Hold on, give me a second. Got some IRL stuff. I'll be done in like 2 seconds here. 1 second. And then this is the kind of noob trap setup killer. If we try to come this way, the boulder comes crashing through, and then you just fight a bunch of Cabra demons, a bunch of Taurus demons, and so having another recycled... Why is that back now? Well, you got by the oldest one in the book. Venom says, when you started this playthrough, you mentioned how obvious the ball rolling trap was, and I thought he's going to fall for it on a second trip to the asylum. I figured he probably didn't have a lot of hits. Alright, I am back, and I need to look for that resource. Alright, so the place that I got my spreadsheets from, essentially, was this text up comparison site by Evie. Or it's really just a sheet. And then I'll go ahead and post this for you guys in the chat if you want to look at Evie's spreadsheets here. Wait, no, this one's Zully's. That's the wrong thing. Where is my mouse? I think my computer's like getting destroyed by the spreadsheet. Okay. Okay, yeah. I definitely shared the wrong link a second ago. So this is the one by Evie. Or Ivy. And what I did was I took the game inputs for like different versions. So I took like the Japanese 1.07, which is current, then the English 1.07, and then I also took the Japanese 1.0 stuff and the English 1.0 stuff on my spreadsheets. Then I manually got rid of like a lot of the duplicated stuff. So like I'm still missing some stuff, and this is not perfect by any means. So I would just recommend using Evie's because it has more content than mine does, if anybody is curious about this. There's also the Karian Archives, which has a text dump of both the English and Japanese versions of the game. What was I saying before that? Great glove words. When you die, you leave behind your runes, your story. Yeah, so as far as like leaving behind runes, I would like that if we saw that happen a bit more often, although I guess maybe we just kind of auto-collect it when it happens to enemies. I do wish like more enemies like dropped their runes or something on the ground to make that more of like a thematic idea, I guess, but that doesn't discredit it. Kyle says, Maliketh was probably a priest of death in Farum Azula before he was turned into a shadow. Only evidence is he is a beast clergyman, and Farum is obviously based on death. So that also depends if you think Maliketh existed before he was a shadowbound beast, which is questionable, because it sounds like Blythe is a very part of Ronnie's being, so why would Maliketh not be part of Marika's being? If the Godskins were from Farum Azula, then Maliketh could lead them as the head priest, potentially. Alright, I might be missing quite a few comments in chat tonight, guys. The falling runes tell a story. Hey, I-Man, nice to see you again. And Meow Laser, I don't remember if I welcomed you in, but welcome in. Hey Sean, welcome on in. Apologies if you've discussed this, just getting here, but are there any theories on why Marika's flesh is burned off her hands when you see them at the beginning of the trailer? Love the videos. Thank you. I don't know if her flesh is burned. I meant to look at that, and that kind of reminds me, I wanted to look at something else on one of the trailers that came up, but I can't remember what it was now. But let me pull that up real quick.
Induction.
Yeah, I don't think these are burned. Because they don't really seem to be like blistered like I would expect from a burn, or like charred. Or do you mean like this part more specifically? I can kind of see where you're coming from with that. But I'm a little bit skeptical. It just seems more likely to me. It's just either the lighting or something going on with this than like an actual burn. Or you might think like this part could be a bit more burn maybe. But if this is supposed to be a burn, it seems very not burn-like. If you've ever been burned, like you normally like blister up, even if it's just like a little bit.
The seduction and the betrayal.
All right. You think they're just bloody? Looks bloodied? Okay. All right. Yeah, no problem, Sean. Thanks for the question. Even if I disagree, I mean, I definitely like looking back and thinking about it a different way. You want it to come out now? The mystery's killing you? All right. It's our lot in life to suffer. All right. So is that it? I think so. Yeah, actually, Sean brings up a good point in that it looks like gore, but the bracelet is clean, and you can see blisters on the thumb and the wrist. Yeah, maybe if the bracers were a bit like more filled with soot, I could be more on board with the burn theory there. Good point. All right, let's go back to the video. I'm going to back it up a little bit so that way I can hear the beginning of her thoughts here.
And because they had this connection, it's possible that the Black Flame was some kind of manifestation of destined death, hence why it had the power to take down gods. Now, if the Gloom-eyed Queen managed to sway the apostles to her cause, she would gain access to the Black Flame, harnessing its power to take down anyone she pleased. However, it's likely that Marika then discovered the Gloom-eyed Queen's chaotic behaviour and ordered Maliketh to seal destined death's power, rendering the primary use of the Black Flame redundant. It would no longer kill any gods. This would also explain why the Godskin duo is in Farum Azula, as you fight Maliketh here.
You know, a weird question just kind of occurred to me. And I mean, it's kind of fine that we don't have an answer, but if what's her face? If the Gloom-eyed Queen was defeated by Marika's shadow, then if the Gloom-eyed Queen was also an Empyrean, where was her shadow during this event? For any who are unfamiliar with some of my content, I have unironically floated the idea that Marika could be the Gloom-eyed Queen. It's complicated. And part of, like, one way that I think this could have worked, if the two are the one and the same, essentially, could be that Marika could have tried to defy the Two Fingers, and then Maliketh rebelled by, like, becoming a baleful shadow and retaliated by attacking her and potentially killing a portion of her. Or maybe she, like, split herself away and created, like, the Marika persona as we know her now, kind of the same way as she has the Radagon persona now. But I don't know, just kind of throwing some stuff out there for you guys. Andrew thinks the current theory is that the gold strands are the raw matter of the Elden Ring. Yeah, it definitely seems that way, and that the thing that Marika holds up could either become like the rune arc or like her Elden Rune, as it's called in her Sword Seal, but the fact that it does play the Elden Beast music during it seems very suggestive, indeed. Kyle was just thinking when looking up Blythe that he says he's part of Ranni's very being, her shadow. What if that's more literal? His form is human and wolf. Why is Marika's shadow beast and wolf? Well, Blythe is kind of a shadow as well. He's definitely a shadow beast, because if you try to kill Blythe and succeed and then reload the area, he will spring back into being as though he was never killed and say, like, no harm can befall a shadow. And then if you kill him again, he'll say, like, didn't I tell you no harm can befall a shadow? Or maybe he just says that if you hurt him, and then he's like, no, you can't hurt me. Anyway, not too important. All right.
The reason for their location could be explained in two ways. One is that these were the past Maliketh loyal Godskins when they were his apostles. However, this wouldn't explain their appearance, as they are clothed in Godskins, which is behaviour indicative of their allegiance to the Gloom-eyed Queen. What is more likely is that they are the remainders of the attack force that the Gloom-eyed Queen led on Maliketh, assuming that she was the instigator. When she was defeated...
Okay, so she doesn't seem to believe that the apostles are followers of Maliketh, or maybe that could be an after effect. So she seems to be just presenting options, I suppose.
The minions that came to assist her now had nowhere to go. After all, Farum Azula is a strange place, in the heart of a storm beyond time. Assuming that the Gloom-eyed Queen knew how to get here in the first place, now with their leader gone, they were probably stranded. And as we know, Maliketh then dispatched the Gloom-eyed Queen. While technically it said defeated, we don't know if this was that she suffered a loss in battle, or the more extreme, Maliketh removed her.
Yeah, I like the attention to detail there, because FromSoft likes to use this type of terminology that is woefully vague, but it's very leading, and people just tend to take one interpretation and kind of run with it, even if it isn't necessarily explicit. I can't say even if it isn't necessarily true, because we just don't get that information. But yeah, the idea of Placidus Axe's god being fled is questionable in terms of what it means in both English and Japanese, as well as the so-called defeat of the Gloom-eyed Queen. So for all intents and purposes, she could still exist to some degree and have just lost before, but we just don't know the details of almost anything in this damn game. And then Rex West, welcome back to the stream. You maintained the Gloom-eyed Queen won't be in the DLC, she'll be saved for a sequel? Well, that is terrible news, because Miyazaki's like, I don't really think we necessarily want to do a sequel yet, but we won't rule it out. And then Backhouse says, if Blythe went mad and became a horrid curse after Ronnie betrayed him, perhaps the same is the case with Maliketh. Yeah, that's kind of what I think. And I wondered if E.G.'s knowledge of Blythe being able to become Baal is because of something that happened in the past, and more specifically, if that something would have been Maliketh, because we do have this weird situation where Maliketh tells us that Marika betrayed him, but he doesn't exactly seem to be Baal quite the same way that Blythe is portrayed. So did he already do the thing that he needed to do? Was he the one who imprisoned Marika and Radagon together in the Elden Ring with that kind of shard of destined death looking like thing that kind of resembles the Spear of Longinus? And could he have been in there with him, and just because he's a shadow he can just kind of move through the shadows and get out whenever? It's you know, it is how it be. Why do the Carians have a portal to Farum Azula? That's a good question. Alright, Kyle, you have to go, but thanks for dropping in as always. You're still curious about the shadows now, and you're more sure we'll see some of the Shadowlands. Very curious why Marika's is Beastman Shadow. Yeah. And I've wondered whether or not, there are different forms of shadows, but they do seem to be wolves kind of hinted at via Vargrim's The Raging Wolf armor set. Hey, Without Horns, welcome back. Florgeboard says, aren't the baleful shadows two-finger assassins in disguise? That is your takeaway from the Black Wolf Mask description. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're assassins explicitly. They seem to be almost like the equivalent of North Korean minders. And for anybody who may have the fortune of not knowing what that is, they're just essentially dual bodyguards / babysitters for the people that they're protecting. And if the babies on these guided tours start to go off the beaten path, they will force them back onto the path. And the more you resist the minders, the more forceful they will become. So it's generally a smart idea to stay on that beaten path and not travel that dark path of the Empyrean, perhaps. Yeah, I kind of agree with Rex there that you think the game is too culturally relevant to not have a sequel. You don't think they expected it to be as big. Oh no, they 1000% didn't, and that was like made very clear in the Kadokawa financial reports for Elden Ring when it first came out. And then Pantheon asks the hard-hitting question of, if Blythe is immortal, then how do we kill Maliketh? I don't have a very satisfactory answer for this, and this is speculative. It really all depends on whether or not Marika's fingers are killed or had been killed prior, and whether or not the fingers in the two fingers in the round table hold are Marika's, and maybe after they get got with the release of the Flame of the Giants, then maybe that's what makes Maliketh vulnerable. But I don't really like that theory for a variety of reasons, but yeah. Did we kill Maliketh? He's still Garank in the present, right? And that's like the other thing why I don't like my explanation, because either Maliketh or Garank can come back, but only once if you kill them. I mean, they don't really come back, but you'll find them in both locations once. So if you kill Garank in the Beast Place, I think he stays dead. I don't know if you can use a Celestial Dew to undo that kind of aggression if you go all the way through with it. And if you kill him in Farum Azula, that's it for him in Farum Azula. But if you kill him in Farum Azula and not in the Bestial Sanctum, he will still be there. And like the weirdest thing is that there does seem to be some continuity between the two Malikeths, because if you do complete the Deathroot quest, he seems to recognize the Tarnished in Farum Azula. So I don't know how much of this stuff is just messed up time mechanics, if Maliketh can recognize us, or some other reasons we don't yet know. Or whether or not it was just like a dev oversight because they just didn't want to get rid of a quest NPC if you fought the boss form of him, which I could see that being a possibility, even as annoying as it would be. Yeah, there's a dialogue change. Does Maliketh covering his eyes protect him from going feral like Blythe or other red-eye beasts? I don't know. I would kind of almost assume not. Although, like, being blind in Elden Ring is a little bit weird, because if your eyes get gouged out, you could potentially see the blood star, but you could also potentially, like, come into contact with the Flame of Frenzy, rather, because your eyes could get melted. And then with like the corn stuff, like just being blind isn't necessarily bad, because it just means you need to stay on the path that you know, and you don't need to rely on your eyes, you just follow. Hey, Mr. Yada, welcome back in. Alright, let's go back.
Existence entirely, so she would no longer be a threat to the godkind. So she could still be out there in the world. There are a few theories that the Gloom-eyed Queen could be someone that we know under a different name. One of the most popular theories I've seen is that Melina is actually the Gloom-eyed Queen. I would recommend looking up other people's videos on this theory, because it has been talked about a lot. For reference, a lot of this is reading between the lines. There is nothing to say she definitely is, but there is nothing to say that she definitely isn't. I'd like to give a short list of the reasons I've found for and against this theory. Reasons for Melina being the Gloom-eyed Queen are...
Ooh, this is fun, especially because like I made a video listing multiple potential candidates for the Gloom-eyed Queen. So yeah, I feel like there's kind of issues with each one, but they kind of can be consistent given the right set of circumstances, which is kind of always a pain to try to establish beforehand. Stella says, what if the Gek is out there just chilling as a nameless NPC? It's possible. She could also just be chilling out there as a named sword.
She's revealed to have a greyish-purple eye in the Frenzied Flame ending. You see her open the eye that was closed for the entirety of the game, and this could be described as the colour of dusk, as in Gloom, as in Gloom-eyed Queen. Secondly, Melina is complicit in helping you take down multiple demigods as part of the game's story, making you a god killer and her an assistant to this, as she helps you level up, give you guidance and motivation to defeat the demigods, much like what the Gloom-eyed Queen may have done. This segues into Melina's quest, which is about unleashing destined death back into the world, which would give the Black Flame its power back, ergo something the Gloom-eyed Queen used to embrace. And lastly, Melina is implied to be Marika's daughter, which would make her a demigod and potentially an Empyrean, just like the Gloom-eyed Queen. Reasons against this theory are the colour of gloam or twilight has been heavily debated. I have seen so many comment threads of people arguing about Melina's eye colour. Depending on the season, weather, or where in the world you are, the period from sunset to nighttime goes through an array of colours. Ergo, the colour of twilight is heavily subjective, and Melina's eye might not fit this, depending on your interpretation. Secondly, Melina doesn't have any dialogue with or on the Godskins. I would have expected just a crumb of acknowledgement if she really was the Gloom-eyed Queen. I mean, she's very forthcoming about her knowledge on Marika and the world. It seems strange that she doesn't let anything slip on the Godskins. Melina also...
For what it's worth, I mean, I agree with her, but I don't know how fair that argument is, because I kind of feel the exact same way about the Tarnished and Ronnie and everything in the game. It's like, why you have Ronnie right there, she's in your pocket, just ask her some damn questions about what happened in the history of the lands between. You stupid Tarnished, please, I want answers. So anyway, setting that aside, well, I do think that it's a really good observation / criticism. It might be worth noting that if Melina was the Gloom-eyed Queen, she does seem to be singularly focused on returning the Rune of Death to the Elden Ring to some degree, and that could be indicative of wanting a return to the order that she envisions. But she also mentions that it was kind of like her mother's vision, which is potentially eyebrow-raising in and of itself. So, yeah. I don't know why I never really made that point before, to be honest. But yeah, I also liked her acknowledging that there are arguments about what the color of gloam may be. And this isn't necessarily an issue of English either. Like, I really don't understand the difference between like gloam and dusk and twilight in Japanese, and I probably understand it a bit more in Japanese than English at this point, just because like trying to look up the etymology of the kanji. Black man thought she was the Gloom-eyed Queen until now. Ooh, you getting confused? Teen Sith says gloam can also mean dawn. In English, fool. Nah, but yeah, like the kanji for gloam, yoi, is more specifically for like dusk. I don't know if Jisho really captures that meaning. Evening, early night hours. All right. Melina must be a fallen leaf. Thank you, Galamoth. I will cherish this nugget of lore. Like Yoru? So Yoru is like more advanced than Yoi. So like Yoru is further along in the cycle of night, apparently. And then Ponyboy, were you in here earlier? Maybe not, but welcome back to stream. To you, globe is that blend of purple and gold at twilight or dusk. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting way that you mentioned that it could be a combination of purple and gold. That might be worth thinking about a bit more. What was the translation when the game came out? Sorry, Iman, could you elaborate the translation for what? Like Gloom-eyed or Dusk-eyed? Oh no, I have top chat on, not live chat. I was like, I feel like I'm missing messages because I didn't see It seems like it might have eaten one of Chadwick's. Whoops. Could it be a possible reference to that eye shine effect on birds at night? Could you elaborate, Teen Sith? Because I actually don't remember. Okay, I'll play the video until we get some more of those comments back in.
Wants you to become Elden Lord. She believes in you and supports you to relieve Marika and make your own world order. I would think that if she were the Gloom-eyed Queen, she'd help you up until the last moment when she doesn't need you anymore and then claim power for herself. But what I honestly think about Melina and the Gloom-eyed Queen theory is, yes, there are definitely some similarities, but there are some holes in these theories as well. The same can be said about the Marika is the Gloom-eyed Queen theory, similar to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Marika being a tool of the Two Fingers, upholding the Golden Order in the day, and then at night being this evil version of herself where she would murder her children. I mean, we know she is not opposed to very extreme measures of family therapy, but I personally can't really get behind this theory. There is already a massive twist in her identity of her and Radigan being the same being. I highly doubt that there is this other possible subcategory of her being the Gloom-eyed Queen as well, but I think it's fair to discuss some of the points. To support Marika being the Gloom-eyed Queen, she is an Empyrean. She is more than a demigod. She was bestowed with godhood, which would support the Gloom-eyed Queen also being chosen by the Fingers. Marika is also a queen, Queen Marika, which explains where the Gloom-eyed Queen adopted this title from. And the most significant point I found interesting to think over is that you never see Marika and the Gloom-eyed Queen mentioned in the same sentence together. Coincidence? This leads me to ask the question, if Marika is or was the Gloom-eyed Queen, why did Maliketh fight her, the one who he swore to protect? After all, these royal beasts are meant to be protectors, but also they act as limiters. We see this with Godfrey and Serosh. Serosh, whether he likes it or not, forces Godfrey to act and behave in certain ways approved by the Two Fingers. When Godfrey had enough and wanted to return to his true self, Horalu, he tore Serosh apart, a display of his ferocity and innate barbaric nature, but also as a display of defiance and desire to break free. Additionally, Blythe had to struggle with his Two Fingers programming and his loyalty to Rani. When Rani chose the dark path of an Empyrean, it started a war inside of Blythe, having to fight every moment not to betray Rani, but also not to betray his creators. Ultimately, Blythe became hostile, which might explain why Maliketh fought the Gloom-eyed Queen, if she is indeed Marika. He had to follow the orders from the Two Fingers to subdue the Gloom-eyed Queen, even if that meant harming her. So to conclude, maybe the Two Fingers sent Maliketh to test him, to see if he could limit the Gloom-eyed Queen, which he did successfully. He defeated her. Therefore, she was converted into what we know now as Marika. This is all entirely...
Yeah, so I actually really like that idea and never thought about it quite in that light. And thinking about the fact that Horalu's identity is kind of directly tied to Sarash is very interesting. And it always had seemed very gruesome and abrupt the way that he dealt with Sarash when they started to separate. So maybe that was actually just... We may have presented Horalu / Godfrey the perfect opportunity to break control away from the Greater Will or the Two Fingers or something along those lines by threatening him enough to make Sarash feel as though he needed to enter battle himself. And then Horalu may have just pounced on that opportunity to come back to his true self. I don't know if that's actually the case, but that's a pretty compelling thought, I think. And then, applying that further to Marika, because she didn't potentially kill Maliketh, could that mean that she was the Gloom-eyed Queen and then Maliketh is to the Gloom-eyed Queen what Sarash is to Horalu? And so is then Marika because of Maliketh? Damn, that sucks, because it's like after we kill Maliketh, like we don't really interact with Marika in any meaningful way to see if this hypothesis really works. There is only Radigan. We have like the shell of Marika, but that's kind of like not Marika anymore. Damn, like even when you have like a really cool theory, you just can't apply it more broadly to try to pick it apart. But I guess like Ronnie's identity doesn't exactly change after you kill Blythe, does it? So maybe this idea doesn't work after all. But I mean, maybe one could argue that after we kill Blythe and then ascend her to the status of a god, it's effectively a different identity for her. I don't know. I don't like that. So I might just kind of like put this theory on the pile for now. All right, so Teen Sith may have had some more info about the birds for us. And hey, Jesse R, welcome back to stream. And then Lavish Peasant, nice to see you again. It's been a minute. I'm not sure, Drew, whether or not the seal-eyed characters have the dual influences that they're trying to fight. Thanks for the hearts. I don't know why. It's the bird eye thing, according to Teen Sith, is technically called, is this tapeturn lucidum, usually referred to as eye shine according to your chat history. Shows up in nocturnal animals. Could you elaborate a little bit more so that way I don't have to like Google real quick? Right, got that. Doggo says, didn't Godfrey get summoned back? So Tangoff Siraj is just the Golden Order needing the strong version back. The Golden Shade version doesn't include Siraj. When did you start needing Siraj? So as far as like the Golden Shade, we don't exactly know what that is. What we colloquially refer to as Goldfree, the one that you fight in the Erdtree Sanctuary. He doesn't have a broken axe. He doesn't have Siraj on his back. But many people believe Goldfree to have been a conjuring by Morgott, since that is kind of most reminiscent of Morgott's magic. Morgott, the grace given. So it could have been a memory of Godfrey that Morgott may have been manipulating. But for what it's worth, I think I said that his axe isn't broken in... So that does seem to be an earlier form of Godfrey. But yeah, I guess we should ask ourselves, why doesn't he have his Siraj on his back then if he is supposed to be Godfrey? So I take it to be more of a memory than an actual like recreation. Ronnie and Godfrey both expressed their love to their shadows before sacrificing. Interesting. Oh, you know how animal eyes look like they're glowing in flash photos? Is that just animals? I thought that was because the retina closing, and then like you see that in people all the time. Is it more specific in animals? Why your dog's eyes blind you at night? Okay, so other than just the flash, I know what you mean now. Like with when you can see like a dog's eyes like glowing back from like firelight and whatnot. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So let me reread that comment now. Okay. So wait, what is it? I know like that thing exists, but that doesn't exactly tell me what it is, if you don't mind. Yeah, and as Doggo says, in the cutscene with Horlu and Morgott, he does seem to be guided by grace to us, although I have wondered whether or not that's essentially our grace showing us the way to him. Okay, the back of the eyes reflects light, so passes through the retina twice, allowing better night vision. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Yushun asks, is there any substantial evidence that Siraj is a shadow? No. You don't think we should jump to this conclusion? I think that's fair. But nonetheless, he does seem to be very similar to Maliketh in both his appearance and like his armor. But yeah, I do think you're probably correct there, that it might not be entirely fair to refer to him as a Shadowbound beast in the same way as Maliketh and Blythe, because he seems to be more affiliated with grace and light than shadow specifically. Okay, and so let me back up this comment she had, because there's more that I want to talk about, and it looks like she's kind of winding down from the Marika's the Gloom-eyed Queen stuff that I might try to fill in some gaps on.
Why Maliketh fought the Gloom-eyed Queen, if she is indeed Marika. He had to follow the orders from the Two Fingers to subdue the Gloom-eyed Queen, even if that meant harming her. So to conclude, maybe the Two Fingers sent Maliketh to test him, to see if he could limit the Gloom-eyed Queen, which he did successfully. He defeated her. Therefore, she was converted into what we know now as Marika. This is all entirely speculation, but it is fun to theory craft and be critical and uncover new perspectives. What I am inclined to believe,
I guess some other contrary evidence to the idea that Maliketh did control the Gloom-eyed Queen or like defeated Marika would be that if Marika was being, if Marika was being legitimately controlled, then it seems unlikely that she'd be able to betray Maliketh if he had defeated her previously in the past, to that degree in which I think Miss Chalice is speculating here. So with that being said, I don't think that necessarily refutes the idea that Marika could have been the Gloom-eyed Queen. And as I'd mentioned earlier, I'd wondered whether or not Maliketh's defeat of the Gloom-eyed Queen could have been an aspect of Marika that was the result of Maliketh becoming Baal due to her trespass against the Greater Will, perhaps for trying to kill her Two Fingers with like the Finger Slayer blade. Maybe that's why there's a bit of a through line between Marika's ties to the Newman and the Nox, and Ronnie's role in the Finger Slayer blade and the Knight of the Black Knives. But there's just not nearly enough information to fully put that together. So I'll just kind of like leave those threads lying around if anybody else wants to pick them up. And some other thoughts about the Gloom-eyed Queen relating to Marika ties back into my silly MS Paint diagram from earlier of the question of who controlled the Elden Ring when the Rune of Death was removed. Was the Gloom-eyed Queen the god of that previous order? If so, that's fine. You need to kind of substantiate that a bit more as to why she's not like described that way, but that isn't necessarily evidence to contradict the theory. And then if Marika had possession of the ring and when she defeated the Gloom-eyed Queen, that would mean that Marika was the god when Destined Death was still in the ring. And then my question would be, why would the Rune of Death be more affiliated with the Gloom-eyed Queen than Marika if she was the current vessel during that time? And then the third option would be, if the god during this time was neither the Gloom-eyed Queen or Marika when the Gloom-eyed Queen was defeated, then why would that have any impact on the Elden Ring? It seems like we're missing a step where Marika would still need to deal with this god at some point to actually remove the Rune of Death from the Elden Ring. So those are just some ideas. And then a lot of that just really depends on when you think the Rune of Death was removed to begin with. So generally, the way that I've treated the Gloom-eyed Queen isn't trying to find out when she herself existed on the timeline. I've been more concerned on what I believe the evidence to be that Destined Death existed in the timeline. And I think it's more likely that Destined Death didn't get removed until after Godfrey was Elden Lord, either towards the end of the Age of Abundance or the beginning of what I would call Radagon's form of Golden Order fundamentalism. And all manner of thing relating to that. So I think it's a good possibility that the Golden Order was not only established from the removal of the Rune of Death, but also the introduction of Radagon's lattice type structure into the Elden Ring itself. But, you know, that's just some, like, very contestable theory crafting right there. And so if I do put the Rune of Death later in the timeline than the beginning of Marika and Godfrey's reign, then for me personally, that would imply that Marika should have been the god during the time when the Rune of Death was in the ring, which goes back into the issue that I was highlighting earlier. But I definitely know other people believe that the Rune of Death was removed when Marika ascended, but I don't necessarily think that's the case. And obviously we don't know what's going on with the new story trailer for the Shadow of the Erdtree, whether or not that does depict the moment Marika became a god or whatnot. But for the sake of argument, if that is the time when Marika became a god and she was plucking something, then whatever she's plucking doesn't match the visuals of the Rune of Death and the Elden Ring specifically. But to be fair, what she plucks out also doesn't exactly look like the Elden Ring as we know it either. So there could be more to the story that we don't know. And she might go on to like forge the Elden Ring right then, and then she could like take the rune out of it immediately. So there is definitely room for argument there. So that's just kind of a quick overview. And just to kind of reiterate, if Marika was the god and Rune of Death was removed later, what the hell does that mean about the Gloom-eyed Queen and its defeat? I think it would most likely mean that Marika should probably be the Gloom-eyed Queen if she had direct control of the Rune of Death from the ring, because it was her ring. So, sorry for being a little bit redundant and repetitive there. Is the grafted Sarash theory still valid? Maybe. If so, it seems like a different form of grafting, but it doesn't entirely contradict what we do know of grafting. Are shadows then only limited to Empyreans? Maybe. It really depends, I guess, on like the two fingers and their abilities. Welcome on in the game. If there are more than 1 2 fingers, are there more than 1 3 fingers? That might be a possibility, but if so, we don't see them. And I would kind of be against that theory because that kind of seems somewhat antithetical to what the 3 fingers seems to preach in like wanting to return to the one great. So it seems like it would be part of the 3 fingers MO to return to oneness. But to be fair, that could all just be lip service propaganda for those 3 fingers to control whomever they come into contact with. So definitely a little bit of wiggle room there. Yushin says, the Elden Ring timeline is way too wonky in this part, but it seems to be the Warring States part of the lore. Iman asks, what if the Gloom-eyed Queen is a person who is supposed to rule over the Shadow Realm, but due to Marika's betrayal, she was killed? That's a possibility, but yeah, that really just ties into like, when do you think the Rune of Death was removed? Because that's when we like learned about the Golden Order, and we know that the Gloom-eyed Queen is incidentally related to the Rune of Death via Destined Death, so it isn't necessarily a guarantee that the removal of the Rune of Death coincides with the defeat of the Gloom-eyed Queen, but it seems the most likely event. Alright, so I think that's a good point to go back to the video.
Is that the Gloom-eyed Queen is an entirely separate character currently unknown to us. I like that there is a lot of mystery behind her existence, her background and timeline, with only a couple of item descriptions that mention her by her nickname. I find that Melina and Marika are complex enough characters without the need for the Gloom-eyed Queen backstory. That being said, I do stand to be proven wrong. Thank you everybody so much for watching. If you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed the lore play, the cosplay and the lore. If there is a particular character you'd like to see me try and cosplay along with their lore, please let me know in the comments below. I did my best to recreate some kind of Godskin apostle, but why does his nose look like that? I also wanted to say a massive thank you to Elias, who did the art for today's thumbnail. Absolutely amazing. Go follow him on Twitter and Instagram, as he does amazing FromSoft art, amongst other things. Go tell him what a great job he did at accommodating my request for today's thumbnail. So thank you again so much for watching, and thank you to my channel members and patrons.
Alright, so as common with Miss Chalice's videos, I thought that was a really good video. I do think there were some other things she could have considered, but you know, that's just how it goes sometimes. Not everybody feels the same way about the timeline. It's really, really convoluted. There's so many different ways that it can be spun that I'm sure that even I've forgotten probably some other things that could be considered as counterpoints to the things that I've presented here. So not trying to make a pissing contest out of this. So as far as this video is concerned, I did like it. I enjoyed some of those observations. I am still a little bit curious about her point with the apostles in relation to Maliketh, because I kind of got two different impressions at one point, but that's fine. Nonetheless, I have wondered whether or not they would have followed Maliketh at all, or if there is the possibility that they only ever worked for the Gloom-eyed Queen, which could be possible. Right. So, for anybody who wants to show Miss Chalice some support, I've gone ahead and linked her video into chat right there. So, alright. I need to go AFK for just a second here, and then I will be back. And then I don't think we have enough time for Smo's video, so I might pivot to something shorter. So I've been going really long with the reactions because I think I've been like bouncing off of chat. So maybe I'll do something like 10 or 15 minutes at this point. And yeah, okay, I'll decide it when I come back. So if anybody in chat has like looked at my React stuff for stream, or if you have like a quick video you want me to look at, just go ahead and let me know. So, all right, be right back. And this is why I tend to not parry. It's because I'm trash. I done goofed. I felt like I should have blocked that. Anyway, I should probably rely more on dodging, and then I was just slow. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay, there's a spot to stand. Okay, that's kind of nice. I should have dodged. I felt like I was way early for that. Alright, yeah, I screwed up. Lie or die? Gotta go for it. Oh, that's different. I don't remember him actually taking his head off. He's kicking my ass now. Oh, I was not expecting that direction. I'm gonna die. See, I felt like I blocked way too early, but I felt like I blocked in time, but apparently that wasn't time enough. Oh, I was way too early with that, apparently. Felt like I probably should have stopped and died again just to get a bit more practice, though, to be honest. I wonder... Oh, I should probably, like, quick step more, huh? I wonder if that, like, trivializes a couple things. My block was off. Okay. Lie or die. Alright, everybody. Welcome. Why am I saying that? I guess it's just happened at this point. Anyway, I'm back. Hope you're all seated and ready. So did we get any quick recommendations in the chat yet? Maybe not. The Alchemist video? How long is that? I think I added it to this. Maybe I didn't. I thought I added it to my list. Maybe I hadn't. We do have Levos. Might be a little bit long though. And Levo, are you in the stream right now? Because if you are around, I'll go ahead and watch it. But if you're not, I'd like to give you a bit of a heads up. Yeah, I guess I haven't seen him tonight, or maybe it was like way earlier. Nope. Okay. We'll rip, and then I might get to his stuff a little bit later then. So, oh yeah, I meant to remove those because I watched them, which is fine. Oh yeah, this is one that I've been kind of meaning to get to, but let me check the timing for the Alchemist one that compares everything to Griffith. Right, let me check. Okay, 15 minutes. Yeah, we could definitely do this one then. So I'll like need to amend my description later. Okay. All right, so let's go check out Deciphering this. Wait, oh yeah. So the thumbnail is provocative. Deciphering the story trailer, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree Lore by Game Plus The Alchemist.
For 2 years we have been played by Miyazaki. He tricked us into thinking that Miquella was Griffith while it was Marika all along. And from that simple act of linking those two characters together, we can explain the DLC story trailer way better. When I first saw that trailer, I didn't understand what the hell was going on. I think you guys had the same experience as well. But the first thing I noticed immediately was the big parallel imagery between the first shots and Berserk, especially the part where Griffiths ascend to godhood. He's portrayed walking on corpses, a pile, a mountain of dead people, just like Marika is portrayed here. You can see the similarity by yourself, and I think this confirms that what we are seeing is Marika's ascension. Just like Griffith, she ascended by the means of dead bodies and betrayal, which bring us to the second point, which is betrayal. In order for Griffith to ascend to godhood, he needed to betray his friends. He needed to offer them as a sacrifice, promised this by the god of the Berserk universe. In the same time, we are clearly told in the story trailer that in the beginning, it was seduction and betrayal. But the question here is the word seduction. Does it mean Marika seducing the being that she extracts the golden item from, or the greater will seducing Marika, his promise of godhood to her, only if she would make a sacrifice, a betrayal, or is it both? Again, the parallels here are very clear, and I can't believe we didn't connect those two characters before.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was somebody out there who tried to make the connection. But yeah, setting that aside, I am pretty pleased that they didn't go like super off the deep end with the seduction thing. Just because like many people have. It's not that big a deal. It's just, I don't know, I'm a little bit tired of it. Of like a lot of the Shadow of the Erdtree speculation at this point. Because a lot of it just kind of ends up being similar. Hey, don't eat that. Oh boy. Okay, what was I saying? Yeah, so I'm a little bit burnt out on the. All right, I'm sure you guys are wondering. So my dog likes to obviously play with toys, but he's really good about like not destroying things too much. But he enjoys like biting on the squeakers, and if he gets a squeaker out of something, he will try to munch on the plastic, and then every once in a while he actually tries to like eat the plastic. So I have to kind of keep more of an eye on him when he's doing that. And he was trying to eat the plastic, so we're good though. Hey Diemo, welcome back in. Yeah, I just had to deal with the dog for a second. And Sage of Time, welcome on in. Interesting name there. Something you find interesting about the story trailer is how the purple hue of the sky people seem to be associating with the color of the Gloom-eyed Queen is actually closer to the color of Melina's hair. I wouldn't necessarily compare it to Melina's hair. I think it would be closer to her eye than the hair. At least parts of it. Necropolis. What is MBK? I'm like Maliketh's black cat kind? Kitty? Just tried to munch on you? When you worked at the dog shelter, you'd cut the squeakers out of all the toys people would donate. That's understandable, especially when you have like that many animals to try to keep an eye on. You just can't do it. Mexican Black King Snake. That is not what I expected from MBK. you say that like it's the most common abbreviation in the world, my guy. That's wild. Your snake just tried to bite you. Hopefully you're all right. Right now my dog's a little bit dejected because I stole the squeaker from him. Come on. Yushin says, you hope there aren't too many Berserk comparisons in the video. You'll go insane if you hear the words Miquella or Griffith together ever again. Well, this one's taking a different spin on it, at least by suggesting that it's Marika, which honestly I do think could make a decent argument because of the kinds of sacrifices she may have had to make to ascend. Because like that opening shot in that trailer, that is provocative as hell. For multiple reasons, and not just like the actual opening, but like, you know, climbing up that pile of corpse steps. I don't know what to call it. Anyway, let's go back to the video.
Well played, Miyazaki. The next point I want to explain is Marika's actions here, and those two giant structures beside her. I think those are tree trunks. But what exactly is Marika doing here? Again, by looking into Berserk we may understand more. First, we already established that this shot is portraying Marika's ascension, but I believe it also portrays her sealing the Shadowlands and going to the lands between. The opening in the middle looks a lot like the environment of Altos Plateau, while the sides look like the Shadowlands. In order to understand this more, let's look at the very similar but reversed event. In the world of Berserk, the physical and astral realms were once connected, they were united, but after ages and certain events, those realms were separated from each other. The only way for creatures to pass between them was the holes in the Erdtree. The Erdtree is a metaphysical concept. When Griffith wanted to make himself appear as a savior, he planned an event. That event would cause those two realms to merge together again. So without getting into much details, he caused the Erdtree to become a spiral tree, which caused the two realms to combine. So he combined the physical and astral realms again, which caused all kind of evil to attack humans. He then made a city at the base of that tree in which people viewed as a safe haven. What they didn't know was that Griffith was actually the villain that caused all of this. I think Marika did the same, but in reverse.
Alright, so I appreciate him setting that up and, you know, trying to break it down for anybody who's not too familiar with that. I don't really have too many problems with this right now. I say that like I'll have problems later, but no. It's very straightforward so far, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then Ryushu, no, it was Rex. Rex said, you had an original theory is that we met a finger reader crone who is Godwin's wet nurse in the base game. I hate to break it to you, pal, but I feel like that's been known for about 2 years. Because we got this right here in the kind of files as to the names of the NPCs. Godwin's wet nurse. I also think that it appears on the side of Grace next to the waterfall finger reader crone in the Eternal Cities. Okay, he's eating the bone. I was afraid he pulled down the squeaker. All right, so yeah. Sorry, might not be that original after all. Chadwick hasn't read since Casca. Spoiler alert. Berserk spoilers. It's all good, Rex. Alright. Here we go. I'm gonna back it up a little bit.
He didn't know was that Griffith was actually the villain that caused all of this. I think Marika did the same, but in reverse. In this shot, she separated the astral realm, which is the Shadowlands, and the physical realm, which is the lands between. Those two tall structures we can see beside her are the trunks of the spiral war tree. We can even see the similarity here. We can even see the door-like opening here. The spiral tree is actually the original tree, which in Elden Ring we refer to as the Crucible. What Marika did was separate the two realms and hide the tree form of the spiral tree. She made the Erdtree to hide the original spiral tree and portray it as only a single tree, which would make people think this is the only realm, the physical realm. She then made a city at the base of the Erdtree, which is Leyendell, going back to Griffith City, Falconia, which resided at the base of the tree as well. We would know that people saw the tree as the reason of their harvest and prosperity. He convinced them that the tree was actually the world tree. That was a lie. As we said, the tree was a metaphysical concept. What Griffiths had was like a hub that connected to the real tree. You see where I'm going here? Just like Griffith, Marika convinced the people of the lands between that the Erdtree is the original tree, while in matter of fact, it was an illusion. The real spiral tree was hidden by the Erdtree. The real tree was the shadow of the Erdtree. I think this is the hidden meaning of the title that Miyazaki told us about. But just like the people of Berserk, the people of the lands between didn't know the truth. The truth that Marika was the villain. The tree isn't real, and the Golden Order was made on betrayal.
So I do think he's speaking metaphorically here when he says that the tree wasn't real. I think he's just saying, like, it's not real in the sense that it's like more of a figurehead, not necessarily like a literal tree. But anyway, if he is trying to say that the tree is literally an illusion and is literally not real, I would just tend to disagree due to the common criticisms of burning the Erdtree, producing ash and Leyendell and all of that. But anyway, that's just kind of like splitting hairs there. Drew Wang says, you don't know how well Marika stacking bodies in a mass sacrifice jives with the whole Crucible concept. So the way that you could explain it with the Crucible in mind would be that the Crucible is taking the life of the dead and congealing it together and producing the sap of the Erdtree. But that kind of rationale is a bit suspect to me because it makes it sound as though like the Crucible does continue directly into the Erdtree rather than being a standalone thing before the Erdtree, which seems to be some of this guy's position. So of course, that's not my position, so I haven't really like thought it out fully, but I don't know how you guys in the chat feel about such an idea. I'm not sure how to pronounce this name, but I'm going to go with the Amos. Welcome on in. The golden outer layer is an illusion. Even that much I would disagree with because of it producing ash. I would say it's more spectral, and that doesn't mean that like it doesn't potentially exist. So Anyway, this is just kind of like an English thing more than anything. Like, illusion in English implies not real, and to me, illusion means like doesn't exist as opposed to being incorporeal, I guess. Maybe other people feel differently about it than I do. You think he's getting his Berserk wrong? Ooh. Do go on, Scowleezy. It's been a long time since I've looked at Berserk because I wanted to binge it by the time I came back to it. And it's probably been over 10 years at this point, so I should have like 12 chapters to catch up on. That's my go-to joke about that. Hey Jonah, how's it going? We watched a video about Godskins. Now we are talking about the God Hands with Berserk. Chadwick says, let's talk sap for a second. If the tree is in essence on its way out, then its last sap would be expressing now, here, in the twilight of its life. Perhaps the gold is the last sputter of the tree. So, could you elaborate which tree you're talking about? Because I've got ideas, but the fact that we do see a sap kind of coming out of the shadow tree, and that there's kind of two shadow trees, muddies the water with the sap of the known Erdtree in the Age of Abundance. The Erdtree. So are you talking about the Erdtree in the Lands Between or in the Shadowlands? And sorry for, being this pedantic about it. I just want to be on the same page. Scowleezy says, Griffith didn't create the world tree, and it's not an illusion. It's an actual metaphysical tree that they use to ride across vast distances. Okay, so you're talking about the Lands Between tree. Thank you, Chadwick. So let me reread that comment. Okay, so you're saying the last gold on the outer bark of the Erdtree is the last remnants of its sap from the original days. Okay, it's understandable. Yeah, I don't really have super strong opinions about it, but I think that could potentially be an acceptable interpretation if you believe that you aren't still getting like sap out of it anymore, I guess. Rob asks, are we sure there are two shadow trees? Well, I mean, that really depends on whether you think the corpses are part of like the original shadow tree or something along that lines, or if you want to talk about the shadow tree, which looks more like the Erdtree versus the coiling one around it. So the answer is, are we sure? No, but I mean, just for the sake of simplicity here, I think they probably should be differentiated. The Demon Emperor of Kushan created the original Erdtree. I stopped like right before the caravan with that dude. That's where I kind of lost on Berserk. Not because like I stopped reading, but that's because like that's when I was fresh and I ran out of content, and I couldn't take the month wait for like one chapter at a time. Well, at that point, it was more like 2 months or 3. It was really bad, the pacing then. All these Berserk spoilers. Anyway. Miyazaki had to call it a singular shadow tree when it looks like two. Typical. The pacing's even worse now. Thanks for that info, 2Hit, and welcome back to the stream. Is this like Toshi Extra, Nen Extra, or is this like a Chinese reading? Year Extra, welcome on in. There are two trees, one wrapping around the other one and crushing the golden sap out of it. Maybe foreshadowing of two powers trying to take over the land of shadow. And to be fair, I did kind of point out what might be the existence of a third tree in the Shadow Realm, but I really don't want to get into that. But anyway, I think we've kind of exhausted this line of conversation for now, so I'm going to back it up slightly and then resume the video.
Didn't know the truth that Marika was the villain, the tree isn't real, and the Golden Order was made on betrayal. This gets us to the question of what was that thing that Marika extracted. I think this is the Elden Beast / ring. Actually, I always thought that the Elden Beast looked so much like the Lanikia supercluster. That supercluster is home to hundreds of thousands of galaxies, and one of those is our Milky Way. Now, I always thought that this was the visual inspiration for the Elden Beast, and that would actually make sense outside the visual similarity. The Elden Beast is a star, it's of cosmic origin. Also in Elden Ring, the Golden Ember contains the remnants of ancient life and houses its vitality. We get that from Selene questline, so it would make sense that the universe is golden. Now, if you removed the blue surroundings and the stars, the Laniakea supercluster would look like this. I don't know, man. Did I go crazy from watching the trailer 100 times, or does this look a lot like it's what's Marika holding? I think this is the Elden Ring when it's extracted from the god of the age. Marika then used this to ascend to godhood and separate the Shadowlands, as we already said. Also,
Yeah, regardless of how you feel about this connection, I feel like this one is a pretty readily acceptable explanation for what's going on. But I mean, there's always the caveat that there could be some other facets to the story that we don't know. But for now, I think it's probably like the most likely explanation.
the theme of the Elden Beast is playing while we are watching those shots. Another evidence would be this shot here where Marika is shattering the Elden Ring. We can see the same golden strands there. Now, if our boy Miquella is innocent after all, and Miyazaki just played us into thinking he was inspired by Griffith, where does that put Miquella now? Let's continue the trailer and I will explain to you my thought process. We are presented by a war led by Mesmer the Impaler. We are even shown why he is called the Impaler. We are also shown that the giant war machines are actually on the side of Mesmer. We are told of Mesmer tyranny and his purge, his eradication of the other factions. This shot in particular reminds me a lot of Vlad the Impaler. Then we are told that the kind Miquella sacrificed everything for the good of the people, for him to go to the Shadowlands and rescue the people from Mesmer's tyranny. He is portrayed as this saint figure, this Christ Savior figure. To prove this even more, we can actually hear a very interesting prayer playing. It's even during the first shot of Miquella.
And so kindly Miquella would abandon everything.
It says Ave Marika. If you have a Christian background or an interest in religions, you would recognize that this is taken from
Miquella would abandon everything.
Yeah, I can hear that.
It says
I don't know if she continues into another syllable of a word or if it's going into a new word, but yeah, I can definitely hear that actually. So, okay. I mean, I don't know how relevant that is really, because like Ave Maria, Ave Marika. Right. And then DMO had a comment that I missed a moment ago. They believe that the tree is a vessel to control the doorways of the realms and the flow of life. You believe in the Elden Ring world there's about 4 or more realms, possible evidence in all these theories together. Would you like to elaborate on the realms you see together? Because the ones that come to mind immediately would be the spirit realm, which might be like related to the Helfen and whatnot. Then you've got the lands between, and the Shadowlands, and then potentially like the outside lands between, which may or may not be the Shadowlands, depending on how you feel about the Confessor set. And maybe you feel like I just explained it, but I'm wondering if you have any other thoughts on that. Ooh, Corin disagrees that those are what the lyrics are. Nice, I love it. Tell me more. Drew Angus is suspicious of lyric interpretations ever since that Bloodborne nonsense. For what it's worth, there was somebody listed as like a Latin translator for like the lyrics of other songs. Maybe that's the case for this one. Maybe we'll have another person try to contact the composers to get more info about it later on, once we actually like know the names of the tracks and the legitimate composers for these. So yeah, I really do take all of the lyric stuff with a heavy grain of salt, especially due to the, let's say, academic dishonesty of the other videos talking about this stuff. But for now, I can buy what he's selling, even if I'm not going to like buy the whole stock, I guess, if I'm making a terrible analogy. Do I agree that the new picture of this narrator is Miquella? Are you talking about like the knightly figure? I don't really agree with anything. I would just say it could be a possibility. Okay.
Ave Marika. If you have a Christian background or an interest in religions, you would recognize that this is taken from the very famous prayer Ave Maria, which is a prayer to the Virgin Mary used in Catholic worship. It's actually very famous. Ave Marika means Hail Marika. But if Marika is this evil character that Miquella is here to fix what she did, why is her theme playing in the background? Let's look at the lyrics of Ave Maria. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. I think it becomes clear now that we are being led to believe that Miquella is the Jesus of Elden Ring, and to be honest, I don't buy that.
I wonder why he goes with this conclusion as opposed to that of the Elden Beast, especially considering the visual imagery at the very beginning of the trailer and the talks of the birth of Golden Shadow. Because if one believes this is the beginning of Marika's ascension to godhood, then Miquella should come way, way later. So that doesn't mean that he might not be right about this, but he would need to sell me on why this over the other possibilities.
I don't buy that Miquella is just doing all of this from the good of his heart. When did we get this selfless demigod type before? It also contradicts with the other lore we have on Miquella, especially the gameplay trailer. And then it hit me. So what if we have two main questlines in the game? Actually three, but we will get to that in a moment. We will have two factions. One is represented by the story trailer, and the other is represented by the gameplay trailer.
Oh no! I just got the mental image of like literally Jesus Christ appearing in Berserk and like smacking Griffith or something like that. I was like, wait, what does this have to do with Berserk? And then just like the imagery of like Jesus saying no and just beating the hell out of Griffith was just not what I expected in my own head.
First, are loyalists to Miquella, and the second doubts his intentions. They are skeptical about him. Let's hear some voice lines from the gameplay trailer.
Pure and radiant, he wields love to shrive clean the hearts of men. There is nothing more terrifying.
In that forsaken place, blood must spill. Blood of your fellows?
They were never saints. They just happened to be on the losing side of a war.
I presume you, too, are keen to know just what kind Miquella is doing here.
We can see the doubt in the words of those NPCs, while in the story trailer, they are talking about Miquella in a very faithful way. In the end of the trailer here, we can see those faithful followers of Miquella. But those aren't the only NPCs we have been shown. There is a lot of missing characters from the gameplay trailer, and that's why I said there will be two factions. The DLC goal would be to find the intentions of Miquella. Which faction is right?
I don't know if it's fair to include the Navy Hooded Traveler set in that, or this person. This just seems to be like a normal Tarnished. But I could see these three. I'm skeptical about this one here. Anyway, that's like not too important. I would agree that we will probably have conflicting factions to some degree, but yeah. Scaleezy says, to a certain portion of people in universe, Griffith is Jesus, to be honest. So America is Griffith, is Jesus, is Miquella. Got it. Thanks, Scaleezy. And then Asnex wishes that one thing FromSoft would do is more branching paths. Yeah, I totally agree there. And I think like my idealized form of Elden Ring, as I've mentioned on streams in the past, would be having like a living, breathing world where if you defeat one demigod, then you have the warring demigods defeat like the other ones that are left. Kind of like Civilization or something like that, where if you focus on one area of the map, the other areas will be conquered or lost depending on the actions of your AI opponents and whatnot. And then if you like bake that more into like the environments like Mega Man X style, that would be like kind of my idealized version of a role-playing game or action role-playing game, whatever you want to call it. Black Man doesn't think there will be factions. Each will embark upon their own path to find Miquella. So no, I meant factions counter to the 6 followers or 7 followers of Miquella we just saw a moment ago. Rex West is not a fan of that? The idea of like the living, breathing world? Or was there something else in chat? Alright, let's go back to the video.
And that's why I said there will be 2 factions. The DLC goal would be to find the intentions of Miquella. Which faction is right? Is Miquella truly the savior of the lands between, or is he lying to ascend to godhood himself? Will he betray us like his mother? Discovering that will be the goal of the DLC. I am really hoping that we got this right, because it would be incredibly awesome if we can choose, If we can decide to either help or oppose Miquella. It would be awesome if an ending can be Miquella ascending to godhood, and if you completed the second questline, you can unlock this secret boss fight with Miquella. Just like in Bloodborne, you can do a certain questline, and then you will unlock the true final boss of the game.
Yeah, they haven't done that with the DLC, but I suppose it isn't technically out of the question. Although I am still disappointed that the Elden Beast wasn't kind of like the moon presence of Elden Ring, and that it was mandatory. Scaleezy says, apart from Marika being crucified and impaled, what other Christian connections are there? Oh man, you are opening up a can of worms that I don't know you want to open. So, there's a lot of lore videos on this subject. One that immediately comes to mind right now would be what Elden Enthusiast is trying to compare with Giordano Bruno's cosmology of the world into Elden Ring, which is kind of Christian, but mostly not. So maybe that actually doesn't answer the question, but right. Wait, what? Shadow of Mordor put a copyright on the whole dynamic enemy faction system? That sounds like bullcrap. Like, that shouldn't exist in a court of law, because, I mean, that stuff was around since Mega Man X. The Nemesis system? I mean, there probably has to be something more to it, but I mean, I've played games like RTSs way back in the 80s and the 90s, like Empire, Age of Empires, Command and Conquer, Civ, StarCraft. It was an NPC learning routine. Oh, okay. That's a little bit different. Okay. It remembered what you did to it. Okay. And had grudges and crap. Can they work with that? I mean, Fable had something like that. I mean, obviously I don't know the particulars. I'm like talking out of my ass, but it just, that kind of like infuriates me. And Korn says the Gnostics were not Christians. Yeah, it's complicated. I probably didn't give the best of examples there, but I'm also not like a Christian lens pusher here. They claimed to be Christians, but they weren't. I mean, that's how Christians feel about Christians. All right, let's go back to the video before keeping on this dark path of the Empyrean.
If you didn't, you will miss it completely. And this is incredibly awesome. Now, let's go over the third main questline I talked about.
Oh damn, Korn's throwing down the gauntlet. He has a doctorate in theology. They were not. Alright, very well. Doctor? Yeah, I definitely don't know enough about Gnosticism or Christianity to really debate.
It revolves around St. Trina. Now we are told that Miquella discarded his fate, and we are shown St. Trina falling somehow. But what does that mean? I believe Miquella was fated to succeed Marika. He was chosen by the greater will. We already discussed in a video the idea of the divine rebus and why it makes the perfect Empyrean.
Is that the bingo right there, chat? We got the rebus mention.
Also speculated that this may be the reason why Marika was chosen, her dual nature. I believe that's why Miquella split off St. Trina from him, so he can discard his fate of becoming an adherent to the greater will. Because of that action, we will have two Miquella. The first is the golden one we are being shown as a Christ figure, and the second is St. Trina. We can see a lot of sleep-related locations and characters in the gameplay trailer. That's why I said the third questline would be finding St. Trina. We will try to find her and understand the nature of Miquella more. Perhaps even side with St. Trina against Miquella. And yes, I do believe that they have different plans and motivations, just like the Marika/Radagon situation. So that's would be the third main questline of the DLC. Perhaps if we chose to side with Miquella against St. Trina, we will get to fight her. That would be incredible. The last thing I want to try and explain is Mesmer constant war and the pile of dead bodies feeding the Crucible. In an old video of mine, I claimed that I found a real life.
I remember seeing this thumbnail. I don't think I watched the video though.
Inspiration of Mesmer, the Mesopotamian deity Ningishida. The similarities.
Did I watch this? Did I watch this on stream? Because that name sounds very familiar actually.
Cannot be denied. Be sure to check the video after this one. To summarize, we speculated that Mesmer is the original god of war of Marika. He is the one that aided her in her ascension to godhood, and I'm very sure we were right about that one. But the more important part is the name of Ningishida, which means the Lord that make the trees grow right. So
I like how they stylized the text there. It's a big pain in the butt, perhaps. So anyway, Michael, welcome on into the stream. St. Trina, final boss? Maybe. Some people have definitely floated that idea. I do like the idea that if Miquella abandoned his body and his fate, then his body might still be lying around. And y'all know what happens to bodies which are just conveniently lying around in Elden Ring, don't you? They get got by a chaos demon. So we were actually kind of talking about a similar topic on the Discord earlier today, and the idea of like possessing bodies and whatnot. And one entity which I continually forget about in relation to this idea would be how Gowry can possess either servants of rot or like pests, which is very strange because if you try to kill him in like all of the Millicent Quest stuff, he will die and transform back into a pest and like kind of taunt the player for like being so short-sighted. It's like, no matter how much you try, I'll be back. So I have kind of wondered whether or not like Gowry is the personification of the outer god of rot to some degree, which might work because he's like sort of impotent and relying on other things. That might just be the way that the outer gods operate, but you know, that's just like some super heavy speculation there. So I actually have footage of Gowry losing his damn mind, so let's pull some of that up. Because if you do kill him after you do all of the stuff with Millicent, then he will just like stay dead. Wow, do I not have any of it actually labeled? Maybe it's not on this hard drive anymore. That sucks. Damn it, I thought I actually had it. In either case, it is... Actually, I can show this one. So it might take me a minute to find it. Okay, sweet.
We shall meet again, you and I. There are countless pests to choose from. Have you taken the lesson now? Killing me is but an exercise in futility. All is well, provided you understand. Let's just pretend it never happened, shall we?
That's so cold, man. Yeah, I kind of really like Gary, even though he's a real bastard man. So I think there's another time that you can kill Gary. I think I had it in this video.
Millicent.
Or maybe I didn't after all. Alright, yeah, so that's good enough for now, I suppose. Hey, formidable foe, welcome on in. Are you the one that Godfrey fought? By any chance? Can you give us some of that hidden lore? The Dream Sona from Miquella? Gary can manipulate the needle, right? That's a little off if he's just some servant of rot. So, sort of, he seems to use blood to do it, which I think is really, really interesting. That unalloyed gold can either be repaired from blood, or there's something within blood that is kind of the same as unalloyed gold, which I tend to think it ends up becoming willpower for a variety of reasons related to Millicent, but yeah, it kind of takes a lot of setup to really... Makes sense. 2-hit once a Nika Mark II fight with the Goddess of Rats, or God of Rats. Am I making fun of you for not knowing he's a bug earlier? No, because you said you didn't know about that earlier, I figured there might not be others who knew about that. So I figure it's a good detail to share. Guess what, chicken butt? It's nice that you can kill him at the end of the quest line. Yeah, it's like he's given up now that he realizes his plans have been foiled, which is really interesting. So maybe you can kill an outer god if he's an outer god. Nah, I'm just kind of joking there. All right. Uh-oh. Whoops. Okay. Let's do this.
Went to the conclusion that Mesmer is the one responsible for planting the Erdtree in the right way. But
all right, let me back this up. And then I forgot that there was one other thing that I wanted to address in this video so far. So going back to that concept of Marika and Radagon being the Rebus, I feel like if my guy here is very serious about trying to make this Griffith connection, then it should necessitate a reevaluation of such previous theories of Marika and Radagon being the, what is it, White King and Red Queen, and all of those things relating to the Rebus, because if you can't put that stuff onto Berserk, then why should we take the Berserk interpretation here more seriously than the alchemical Rebus stuff, and vice versa? Why should we take the alchemical Rebus stuff to be more apt than the Berserk stuff? So that's just kind of like one of those things that I think we should keep in mind, which isn't to say that either has to have superiority over the other, but if you peddle both, I feel like you're kind of contradicting yourself a little bit.
denied, be sure to check the video after this one. To summarize, we speculated that Mesmer is the original god of war of Marika. He is the one that aided her in her ascension to godhood, and I'm very sure we were right about that one. But the more important part is the name of Ningishida, which means the Lord that make the trees grow right. So I went to the conclusion that Mesmer is the one responsible for planting the Erdtree in the right way. But we didn't know how. I believe I was right. And the way Mesmer sustained the illusion of the Erdtree that resides in the lands between is through feeding dead bodies to the Crucible. That's why we can see all those dead bodies in the trunk of the tree, and that's why Mesmer is constantly waging war in the lands of Shadow, to provide more fertilizer to the Crucible so the Erdtree illusion would remain and Marika rule, of course. Now he probably didn't know what was happening in the lands between. He also may haven't been banished. He may have been left there by Marika herself to keep sustaining the tree and stopping any rebellion. The trailer was quite ambiguous, but I tried to decipher it as best as I can. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed, and tell me in the comment section what you think. Until next video, farewell, fellow Tarnished.
Alright, so despite everything, I do think that was pretty cleanly made, even if I don't fully believe the whole Ningishita or Griffith parallels. There was one thing that I wanted to double check here, since it just came into mind right now, that might be worth re-examining in light of the new trailer, because for anybody who doesn't know, Sarash's name may come from a mythological Zoroastrian being called Saraosha, and I guess I'll make this bigger. It was the name of a Zoroastrian Yazata, which I don't remember what the hell this is, of conscience and observance, which is also the literal meaning of his name. So Sarash could be the conscience of Godfrey, essentially, but I believe he was supposed to be a bridge keeper in this. Saraosha's primary function is to propagate conscience and the beauty of life. Secondly, the religion of Ahura Mazda to humanity. Sarasha himself learned it from Ahura Mazda. I don't remember enough about Ahura Mazda off the top of my head. I might look at this real quick. I should probably do this off stream. But anyway, in the ethical goals of Zoroastrianism, good thoughts, good words, good deeds were expressed in Yasna 33:14. Saraosha is identified with good deeds. Good words, okay. So anyway, wait. Saraosha is variously described as mighty, the incarnate word of reason whose body is the holy spell. Saraosha possesses truth and is stately. He is said to have been the first in all of creation to adore Ahura Mazda and the Amesha Spentas. Here cited, blah, blah, blah. He returned victorious from his battles with evil, which allowed the various aspects of creation to populate the world. Saraosha wanders about the world teaching the religion of Mazda. Saraosha is frequently described as Lord of Ritual, and he propitiates Halma with sacrifice. So, why am I bringing up Saraosha? Maybe it's because if we have these other kind of potential mythological figures which are referenced somewhat in the game, but they don't fully match up with the traditions from which they came, maybe it might be unfair to try to do this with other ones, but nonetheless, I think we should try regardless with like the Ningishita. So ultimately, just stay skeptical is kind of the main point with all that. Astanek said, it could be like Gehrman then. Somebody left him behind to clean up a mess and there was nobody at home to tell him to stop. I don't necessarily know if I'd agree with the framing of that comparison, but sure, maybe. Gotcha, Demo. Gotcha, Black Man. I.e. not welcome back. Gotta love waking up to these streams. Sorry, my guy, we're probably going to be ending pretty soon. And Starling, welcome on in. Is Marika Inanna or Ishtar? Honestly, I don't remember enough about Ishtar or Inanna to make... I'm not even familiar with Inanna to make a kind of educated guess, or even like an uneducated guess at this point. Yeah, and as Drew says, Melina offers us an Accord, not a Mazda. So good point there. Hey Tony, nice to see you again. In Tony's opinion, yes to the Ishtar stuff. Okay, cool. Yeah, so maybe I have more to check out with all this Saraosha, Ahura Mazda, and Ishtar stuff. So anyway, did I link this in chat? I don't know if I did. Yes, okay. So I've gone ahead and linked the video into chat if you guys want to give Game Plus The Alchemist a like or a sub. I'm not sure what else they have. I might sub now. Wait, they really only have 3 videos? What the hell? No? What is going on with this guy's homepage? Maybe he just like deleted all of his sections and was unaware of that. Okay, he's got a decent chunk of stuff. I'm gonna like leave a comment on his video there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let me actually leave him in legitimate. Okay. Only 5 1-minute videos listed, so it almost looks like you had no content I could subscribe to. Alright. Inanna has some poems about traveling to the underworld and transferring a tree. Okay. Alright, Hilka, I appreciate that. Okay, everybody, we're kind of actually ending a stream mostly on time for once. It's been quite a while since I've done that. So yeah, thanks for the recommendation of the Griffith video by Game Plus. I appreciate that. We will be going live again at the same time of 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll probably watch Smotown's breakdown of the trailer and maybe Levo's video if he's around for it, or like one of his videos. So that's kind of what I've got in mind, but things are kind of always subject to change, especially when they release extra story trailers that we weren't expecting. But nonetheless, I don't really expect that to happen, but you never know. So once again, thanks for joining the streams, whether you're watching live, chatting, lurking, or catching the VODs. I appreciate it. Till next time, take care, stay safe. Last Protagonist out.